can't just click the link. I'm gonna just copy it. Hello.
Yeah, that's a thing about sharing links here.
Yeah.
I think we are pretty much live, and I just want to say, oh, holy crap! I forgot that I'm wearing my rock and roll T-shirt. Now everybody knows that I'm a secret Nazi.
Yeah, right.
I don't know I do not know if you ever saw that. There was like a highlight video that I uploaded of me like reading a article on livestream, where they were like responding to the person who wrote the article was responding to a police department up in Canada that was saying that if you like listen to hard rock or loud music, then it might be suspect that they are part of a hate group.
That's people listen to crazy because punk is leftist, and that is exactly what like that is.
It's absolutely
yeah.
It's absolutely stupid because I mean, sure, you got right wing bands like or people more along the lines of being on the right, like Metallica and Five Finger Death Punch, but then you got lots of leftists like Pearl Jam, I think, is one of them. Green Day, Rage Against the Machine, one of them, and Disturbed is pretty much made up of a bunch of Bernie bros. But yes. And I just want to say to everybody, yes, you are like looking at some behind the scenes sort of background right here as you're seeing my green screen instead of actually seeing the blue flames, because the new YouTube studio is absolute trash. It's not as easy to set up with OBS. So yeah, no OBS this time, the thing that I originally wanted to do today. But nonetheless, here we are. So 2020 has been a bit of a bummer of a year, folks. And in no small part, in fact, in a large part, actually, has it been because largely of the politics. Coronavirus pandemic, cops, the mild scare that we had with World War III. Heck, there was even a mild scare with the bubonic plague, although I think that's kind of fizzled out a bit.
Well, that's under control. That comes and goes.
Yeah, and all the pedophilia allegations towards a lot of celebrities, although we probably won't get as much into that. So that is going to be the issue that we want to talk about here today. But as you can see by the thumbnail, if you had like looked at the notifications and whatnot, you can see that I'm supposed to have like two other guests with me. I just got SmileyP here with me, of course.
Fucking lazy hippies. Yeah, we're not known for our punctuality.
You're not wrong. They are a whole bunch of hippies. I said you're not wrong. They are a bunch of hippies. In fact, so are you, for that matter.
Yep, I admit it. I completely guilty as charged. Though don't arrest me, please. It's still legal, technically.
But hopefully before we actually get into subject, so those other two guests will join us. But for right now, while we're waiting for Memes and Mjolnir Man to hopefully still show up, we're going to open up with a different subject that we kind of addressed a little bit earlier, like a couple of weeks ago. Like some of you, my fans, have noticed that I did like a response stream to Smile's response video to my 2 cents video on Marxist class theory and so forth. So I thought that we would talk about that right now. So I don't know, Smiley, I guess I'll let you open up or something about that subject.
Do you want to bring up the video, or do you just want to discuss it?
Well, if you think that it's important for the context, we can bring it up. But other than that, I was thinking that we just have like a free-flowing conversation about the subjects that were brought up of that stream, you know?
Sounds good.
So,
well, I think, if I may, I think the main disconnect was the point of the video, actually, which was the distinction between Marxian class and like capitalist class, where class in the Marxian sense, under Marxism, is defined as the proletariat working class or the bourgeois owning class, the business class. And no matter how rich you are, it doesn't matter if you're making millions of dollars. If you do not own the means of production that you are working, you are laboring it and therefore a proletariat.
Okay.
Which is why what's her name? Kate Upton would still be a member of the proletariat. Now, since she's very wealthy from her work, she probably owns things like makeup lines and stuff like that. So she may actually end up being a bourgeois or a petite bourgeois, which is kind of the sort of like local business kind of class.
She definitely is petite. We can say that.
Well, yeah, in certain areas, less than others. Yeah, I was actually thinking, you know how I have those little cartoon characters? I actually have one of him giving like the double thumbs up. And when he showed the picture of him, I thought of quickly changing my little avatar guy to that and then like switching back, but I didn't. I was I was just like, enough, enough is being said about her body. I don't need to, she makes a living off of it being good. So I wouldn't be adding anything.
No, it's all right. I mean, I guess there is a bit of a point to be made. Okay, I will admit that in the original response stream that I probably approached it a bit incorrectly.
No, you did very well. I think actually that's why I was asking before we started that if the other guy, the trucker guy, was going to come on, because I feel like he actually had more problems with it than it sounded like you did. It sounded like you understood it pretty well.
I mean, I understood it enough, and I was being fairly generous, mostly because I got introduced to you, acquainted, and whatnot. And overall, you're a fair dude. But ultimately, the big problem that I had with the video in hand is saying that ANCAPs have a problem with anti-slavery laws.
Oh, yes. And I don't disagree. I believe that they probably do. A lot of them do. You have the non-aggression pact. I actually had a thing on it, but I kind of deleted it from the script. But if you want to make your full point, and then I'll respond to it.
Holy shit, you got SmileyP on here, says Night Shift 10,000. Yes, yes, I did, Night Shift.
I'm looking at the YouTube chat but watching us live on.
But anyway, so my biggest problem was, I mean, in the ultimatum of things, in the practicality of things, ANCAPs being, if they are like truly to be anarchists, they are against government, but at the same time, you, at least in theory, Smiles, are against government as well. So wouldn't that by proxy mean that you are against anti-slavery laws in the same way that ANCAPs are?
Yes, actually. I'm glad that you phrased it that way. So the ANCAP prevention from slavery and violence and coercion specifically would be the non-aggression pact. Under leftist libertarianism, we would have a similar idea as a non-aggression pact, but again, we would be about working together rather than separately. So like libertarian on the right is an anarchism of I am free to do what I wish to do, whereas left libertarianism is I am free because everybody is free and we're all free together. So, as long as the community, like you can do anything you want within the community, but obviously if you hurt the community or do something wrong, you're going to get kicked out.
I just want to say very quickly that those don't seem inherently contradictory with one another.
No, they don't, actually.
Although I guess it kind of brings in the question of Hoppianism, which is a brand of anarcho-capitalism. Do not know if you know about that little philosophy.
I'm not sure.
Of anarcho-capitalism, but Hoppianism, they believe in covenant communities, basically, where all the people.
But they still operate under capitalism, though.
Yes, somewhat. And ultimately, if people do not follow the same social standards as is applied within the covenant community, then people will be kicked out. So I guess in a way, communism, or your brand of communism anyway, would work as a form of covenant community where everybody is supposed to share each other's goods, whether or not of how hard they do or don't work. So, or else you get kicked out for like being a greedy bastard or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, I want to say that yes, in practicality.
I have a response, by the way, when you're done.
Yeah. Okay. Go on very quickly. Then I'll go on with my point.
Well, no, you finish and then I'll go.
Okay. So
my point is big.
My point was yes, in all practicality, anarcho-capitalists are against anti-slavery laws, mostly because of the fact that they are against government as a whole. Like if a government as a whole was to become null and void, then there would be no laws at all, no technical laws that would be protecting people from slavery. But at the same time, because we are under a government, they do not have a problem with any laws or legislation that reaffirms people's natural rights, that being like self-ownership and protections from slavery. So it just seemed like the big implication that you're giving right there. And knowing the society that we lived in the 1800s, where there was in fact a government and there had to be anti-slavery laws made to make it pretty much, to pretty much extinguish slavery as a mainstream thing within the Western world. It seems to me that if you were to like rewind the clocks on them back to the 1800s, and they still had the same mindset, granted, then they would be for those anti-slavery laws. They wouldn't be outright against them. So it just, I do not know if that was like, be it because you are having clumsy wording on your part, or you really did believe that ANCAPs are like for owning slaves or whatnot. Either way, it seems like a bit of a straw man at the time.
Mm-hmm. I can see how it seemed like that because I didn't actually explain it very much because again the video wasn't about slavery. I could make an actual whole video about slavery, but it was about class, which
of course.
But the point that I was making, why the whole reason I brought up slavery at all was because slavery can exist under capitalism and still have the proletariat and the classes. But the slave class just aren't even paid. But actually, going into it, I'll swing back to it, slavery specifically. But the main difference between ANCAPs and ANCOMs is not even our collectivism versus individualism. That is, it tends to be that collectivists are on the left, and I don't know if I'm mirrored, and individualists are on the right. But it's more, the difference isn't in our desire for freedom and personal liberty. That's the thing that anarchists and on both sides agree on. The thing we disagree on is how property should be handled. On the right, the anarcho-capitalism idea boiled down pretty much to its most basic form is laissez-faire capitalism, neoliberalism, complete let go of the free market.
The true original definition of neoliberalism, too, by the way, folks. Not the modern day definition that a whole lot of other commies outside of SmileyP seem to apply to people like Hillary Clinton, who is, I mean,
liberal. She's a liberal. She's not a leftist. No.
Right. This is
She's actually pretty right, to be honest. She might not even be liberal.
This is a little something that triggers the shit out of PSA Sitch, by the way, is people misusing the term neoliberal, but I digress. Go on.
Mm-hmm. Well, I understand neoliberal, and I hope to use it correctly. I understand it as somebody who believes in everything should be privatized. Like, the more privatization, the better, is sort of my understanding of neoliberalism, which I equate similarly to anarcho-capitalism. But they may be different. I'm not sure. I was just thinking neoliberalism to its logical extreme would be
just a little very quick thing to...
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, they're not the same. They are not identical. They have a lot of things in common, but they're not the same. I
guess neoliberalism would be a certain type of government that intervenes very little to none in the economy, whereas anarcho-capitalism would be absolutely no government. Why are you wearing a damn mask? Enabling this nonsense only makes it worse. And just to note, everybody, the reason why I'm wearing a mask right now is mostly for the sake of the aesthetic, because I really like this SA Gear face mask.
Dope. I like it.
Flag.
Hold on, I have a cool mask too.
No other reason. No other reason, folks. But I might actually take it off soon because I want to get a drink of my monster that I haven't even opened up yet, and water. But nonetheless, hopefully SmileyP gets back here soon. No, slavery can't exist under capitalism. Capitalism encourages innovation and work. Still, slavery is regressive the way and does not reward innovation.
Here's my ANCOM mask.
It looks more like a cowboy bandana.
It does. It's actually a mask, though, that looks like a bandana, which is why I like it, because it makes me look like I'm Antifa.
I gotcha.
Which you can't be a part of. It's an idea. It's not an organization. But we can get into that later as well. Hold on one second.
Anyway, so Night Shift kind of reminded me of a point with his one chat comment, reminded me of a point that I made in my live stream, and is that technically, like in all practicality, slavery can exist under. Sorry, what?
I need to turn my light off, and I need to unplug.
Okay,
my
do that very quickly. Do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would just not use headphones or use Bluetooth headphones if I could, but I can't because it would echo and just it would be complicated. Anyway, so what were you saying?
Yeah, as I was saying right there, the thing that I had mentioned in the live stream is that I guess in all practicality, technically, slavery could exist under a form of a capitalist society. At the same time, it could exist under a form of communist society.
It could, yeah, a form, yeah. Well,
but I just want to say that it ain't inherently a capitalist thing. Adam Smith, being pretty much the godfather of the idea of capitalism, the forerunner of it, he pretty much disowned capitalism from that belief. And plus, he made the point plenty of times that slavery makes capitalism inefficient because it kind of discourages people from working harder to put out a higher production rate.
Which is actually kind of nice to know if that's a fact, because it actually disincentivizes slavery.
That isn't the exact wording that he uses, but that is basically my layman's memory of how he articulates it.
Yes, I'm sure. So, well, here's the thing. On the right, you guys, well, not necessarily you, but ANCAPs tend to, like, as someone in the comments said, they like to distance themselves from corporatism, which they believe is the problem, and that it won't develop under anarcho-capitalism, which I think is kind of ridiculous. But
kind of, and kind of on your point, to address Mikhail a bit, neoliberalism is just another term for corporatism, as well as rules for thee, but not for me. I kind of addressed this a little bit earlier, Mikhail, no offense, but that isn't the official definition of neoliberalism. The botched modern day definition of neoliberalism that everybody seems to know and use is corporatism. You know, people calling Hillary Clinton a neoliberal and so forth. But the original definition of neoliberalism that I think Smiles is trying to use here is free markets, that being like one of the opposite things of corporatism and plutocracy. Go on, though, Smiles.
Well, okay, so I'm trying to think of where to start. The main, like, we what I like to do is focus on what we have in common, which is why I like to argue with ANCAPs on my channel. I have not done it yet, but I am planning to, if anyone would like to subscribe and see that. Anyway, so the main difference between the left and the right on anarchism is the view of property, whereas on the right, you guys want to create liberty through private property and ownership laws, whereas on the left we want to create anarchism and liberty through collective ownership and no private property.
Actually,
personal but not private.
I would, if I was to try to argue for myself and ANCAPs, freedom doesn't exist.
But you're not an ANCAP, though, right?
Yeah, well, of course, I'm not an ANCAP. Just for all the people, all the leftists who think practically that
I'm trying to protect you.
Anybody to the right of George W. Bush is a freaking ANCAP. No, I am not an ANCAP. But anyway, enough of that, though. Damn it.
Well, I don't think we're done with that, actually.
I forgot what the point I was going to make.
Well, maybe it'll come back to
you. Yeah. Well, I remember the point I was wanting to make. I would frame it a little bit of a different way. I don't say that freedom exists because of private property. I say that private property rights or private property in general exists because of freedom, or at least our concept of freedom. Anyways, go on though.
Yes. Okay. So, but you personally believe in private property, but not to the extent that the ANCAPs do, right?
I would say about the similar extent that ANCAPs do. The ANCAPs, they believe that there should be absolutely nothing but private property, that there should be absolutely no public sector, no publicly owned property. That would be the only difference. But outside of that, I pretty much agree with them on the same concept of a piece of private property, that a person can do whatever the fuck they want with their private property as long as it does not affect or harm anyone else on that private property, either because of intent or negligence. Like, say, there was a board that they just leaned on that wasn't stable, and they ended up committing, I don't know, manslaughter because they hit him in the head hard enough with that board. But they had no intent, but it was still an accident, you know.
Yeah. So, do you want to keep talking about private property because it gets into slavery?
Well, I would say that really, whatever whack job, way back in the transatlantic slave trade days, they had a very wacky, corrupt version of what they conceive private property to be. Humans are not property. They are the individuals that may pursue private property, the ownership of private property, in the same way that white people are.
If I may, my sort of comparison is that while many people would probably do that, because of the lack of any state and things decide based on basically people's money and what they can afford to do, laws and private police forces and things like that. I think because of that, slavery will inevitably develop under anarcho-capitalism, even if certain sects don't allow it. I think others will, and the ones that will enforce it with violence, because again, it is not illegal.
That's granting that if even half of the populace within Ancapistan, or the majority of people within Ancapistan, believe that slavery is not an unethical thing. I mean,
what about if you viewed it like this?
If the majority of them do believe that slavery is an unethical thing, well, then obviously there will be people who will see that and think, no, that's fucked up. Let's go and prevent that. Let's try to rescue the slave from, being held at gunpoint or by the chain or whatever on that cotton field.
What about volunteer slavery or indentured servitude? What if someone is poor and to provide for their family, they sell themselves as a slave for 50 years? And then they give the money to their family.
Sell themselves as a slave?
Yeah, if they voluntarily, slavery still exists, but but because they who own themselves sell themselves as a slave in order to afford to pay for their family or something.
I cannot envision like a whole lot of people at all. Like I can't even envision 1% of the populace within the guild doing such a thing.
It seems absurd, but let me finish. What if the cost of living was so high? Again, everything's privatized.
If they were to consent to the idea of selling themselves like, I am like forever in your humble service, or I'm humbly forever in your debt, or whatever.
I mean, what if it was for like $10 million?
Go ahead. That's their prerogative. What was your question?
Well, I'm saying, like, what if they were willing to pay you like $10 million? Would you potentially be a slave for 50 years to have $10 million, especially that you could invest while you're a slave? Presumably, you'd be paid for with your food and living.
It would depend on what the duties are of the slavery, because we have I don't know this is of how much of a prevalent thing this is, but forever that an employer and employee might agree on a contract that says, for this set amount of time you shall work for me without firing, and they consent to sign on that dotted line. It depends on what the terms of agreement are.
It is a potentiality. I'm not saying that it's guaranteed, but it's something that I view as very probable, perhaps more probable than many on the right do. And we can go into why if you want, but we don't have to. The main thing between ANCAPs and ANCOMs is that ANCAPs believe in the sanctity of private property, and ANCOMs believe that private property should be destroyed, and that there should be no one should. We have a phrase which is, no one owns anything, everyone owns everything. Essentially, commodities disappear and everybody has a right to their living conditions, like a house, medical facilities, education, clothing, food, etc. And you have the same opportunity as everyone else. It's not equality of outcome, it's equality of opportunity. The son of a billionaire and a poor orphan have the same opportunity for success. Because money would not benefit anyone. Because money wouldn't exist.
I'm gonna let you. Slavery violates the self-ownership. Well, of course, Scorch. I'm trying to read up on the chat here a little bit. I was also trying to write down in my notes of what were some of the next few points that I wanted to address. Wait, that's exchanging your services for money. That isn't technically slavery. Yeah, I guess
that's why I use the term indentured servitude.
Yeah, I mean. Indentured. If a person voluntarily sells themselves into indentured servitude, well, then they should know of the repercussions of their decision to do that. That they will be forever a servant under that person, even if sometime in the future they start to regret their decision of selling their entire selves to that person. They should be known of the repercussions, and that I would say. Is, even though it's a highly improbability, I would say that's another reason as to why that children do not have the exact same rights as adults. And and I say that mostly in reference of a video that I uploaded recently talking about pedophilia.
I imagine. Yeah, you and I are in agreement there.
Did you see that
But
video?
what I'm thinking of is like Roman slavery. I'm not just referring to the chattel slavery of African peoples. I'm talking about in the Americas and otherwise. I'm talking all kinds of slaveries, because again, there's no state to outlaw slavery. So indentured servitude, which is a form of slavery, as well as, I mean, technically, I don't see how it would be that crazy to believe that corporations would develop under anarcho-capitalism, even though they're anti-corporate supposedly. But businesses for profit would conglomerate, and they might war each other, and they might capture prisoners.
Okay, if you're talking about all kinds of slavery, like indentured servitude,
yes, I am,
and the transatlantic slave trade right now, well then, okay, that's one thing. But let's keep this in mind that during the video, you mentioned up slavery, and you said a little bit later that it once existed in the Americas. And keep in mind that in the mainstream, in the Americas back then, it was chattel slavery. It was African tribes conquering other black people, kidnapping them, selling them to white people for white people to own and beat.
I also believe that chattel slavery will still develop.
So we aren't talking about the indentured servitude of where that you actually consensually sell yourself. I mean, the main type of slavery that I'm addressing is the type that is completely involuntary, where you get kidnapped and sold out to someone else.
Well, here's the thing. The Non-Aggression Pact could have all these fancy rules, especially as someone mentioned in the chat. You can highlight it if you want, but you can't sell yourself and claim to have self-ownership. It's apparent, according to this person. I have not read any official or unofficial NAPs and list of, I haven't read any, but I understand the concept of it. And if that's the case, I still don't see you still have to worry about who's enforcing it, and those who would enforce it would generally be those with the most money and the wealthiest, so that they would enforce the laws that they like, and they would enforce them with violence. The monopoly on violence would go from the government to private corporations, and it would no longer be a monopoly necessarily. It would eventually, in my opinion, from my understanding of economics, probably develop into a monopoly of some kind, but initially it would only be defending the highest bidder.
I mean, ultimately, I guess there is a point to be made that I'm not in total disagreement that if a government was like completely gotten rid of, that it could eventually,
which is why you're not an ANCAP.
which it could go possibly back full circle into somebody making themselves ruler or the arbiter or whatever else have you. But that is another debate entirely.
Anarcho-capitalism is actually neo-feudalism.
But I would also argue that even under anarcho-communism, it could go full circle in that same way as well.
The laws under anarchism would only be enforced by those with violence, and because that's the only way you can truly defend laws and enforce them. And they would be enforced by those in power and who have the money to afford and pay for the defense and the paramilitary.
Even under anarcho-communism, there would still be people want to be violent. But we would have mental health services available to them, and we would try to prevent that. We would have free schools. Every child would have the same access to education and healthcare. And if a child is developing symptoms of psychopathy or depression or anything like that, they would be given the help that they need to try to avoid it. And unfortunately, some people are beyond control and need to be removed from society. And using the democratic structure of anarcho-communism, we would probably give them the best possible treatment that they could and keep them away from other people. I would say that in spite of whatever mental health treatment that you want to give to people, that people will still find some kind of twisted logic within their head to be violent. And means of destruction, I see you in the chat there. You're supposed to be in this call. Get your fat ass in here.
Yeah, what I don't know what your monetization level is like. Can we swear or no?
I don't give a shit. I mean,
okay, cool.
I swore even earlier than this minute.
Yeah, I just wanted to make officially sure.
Yeah. So anyway, kind of getting off of that for a little bit. There's another thing about the video that actually another couple of things that I want to address about the video before we move on to talking about 2020 politics. As soon as Memes gets in here, and hopefully Mjolnir Man, hopefully hopefully Austin, and he's revealed his own name, by the way, so I'm not doxing him.
Say again. Oh, thank you. Can you leave it at the door, please? Thank you. Sorry, my mom went to Starbucks and she bought me something. Okay. Thank you.
you soy latte sipping cuck.
Actually, it was food. It was food. Hold on, I'm gonna grab it real quick. If I may, could you invite Memes on and I could go away for a minute or two?
I mean, he's already got the link. You can go ahead and go get your stuff. I'm just gonna.
I don't want to leave it with dead air. That's why I asked her to leave it outside the door. So
No. You go ahead. I'll chat with the chat here a little bit.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'll be back in no more than 5 minutes.
So, hello everybody in the chat. How are y'all doing? I see Mikhail is in here. Ivan's son was here a little bit earlier. The one making commentary about me wearing my blackout American flag mask. Night Shift 10,000, Mikhail, JC Armitage, and Scorch. Don't know if I already mentioned you. Yeah, how are y'all doing? He lives with BRT having a butt, says means of destruction. I do not know what BRT means, by the way, but I have given you the link in both Twitter and Discord memes. So if you may please join this call so that we can have a little bit more of a diverse discussion when we go talking about 2020 politics, that would be cool. And how plus free education isn't free. The teachers would immediately be slaves. Yeah, there is like some precedent to be made, some points to be made. It's to be risen out of the precedent set by anarcho-communism, as far as free teachers go. Under anarcho-communism, you would have the rule of the majority over the minority. There's a point to be made there, I guess, Night Shift. Although I would say that in any purely majoritarian democracy, it's the same thing, not just under anarcho-communism.
Memes has yet to join us. Oh, whoops.
Yep.
Actually, I'll take them off. It's all good.
BRT is be right there, perhaps. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, BRT is be right there. I use that too.
Be right there having a butt.
I guess it's a leftist thing. I didn't know that. Yeah, I use BRT all the time if I'm like pulling up on someone's house or something.
DarkCon asks Night Shift. Some other time, Night Shift, I'll definitely have to have you on a Strike Force discussion sometime, Night Shift. But primarily, this live stream was supposed to primarily be a discussion about 2020 politics and a little bit about Smile's video. We're going to give some more time.
You also wanted leftists specifically on this one, right?
Yes, and Night Shift is pretty much a hard right anarchist himself.
Okay, I mean, I would happily debate you on my own channel if you'd like, Night Shift. Yeah, I totally would be down.
Night Shift, do you want to redeem yourself from when you gone debating Chatsburg?
If he's up for it, I don't want to force him or anything.
Means of Destruction says, you look like a visitor from a galaxy far, far away, Dark Conservatarian. Well, thank you.
Yeah, you look like Rey from the new Star Wars movie. Although I don't know if that's a compliment.
I look like,
but her look was pretty cool when she was on. When she was on the planet. I know it was. I don't mean it as an insult, but she had that cool outfit where when she was a scavenger. You look like a scavenger, kind of, which is kind of a cool look. You look like a junker.
I like to think that I look more like a riot cop than a freaking.
You look more like a rioter than a riot cop, though. I'll say.
Riot cops also have.
That's my opinion.
Well,
usually they have helmets and they have big visors.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to go for riot cop, we'll call you a riot cop if that's what you prefer.
Nonetheless,
that's how you identify.
But anarcho-capitalism isn't democratic. It's completely individualist. I wasn't trying to say that anarcho-capitalism is like inherently democratic. Although I would like to add that with people want to set up their corporations in Ancapistan, that they could set up where there's like a democracy of execs deciding what to do with the corporation. So there is that. It's the bug glasses as means of destruction.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe he's saying you look kind of like Alien or something, or an alien rather, with the big. Oh yeah, I see what he's saying because you look like they look kind of like the eyes of a gray alien,
Dude, he looks more
he looks
Batman villain.
No, he looks more like somebody impersonating Batman, like one of the other vigilantes that like pretend to be Batman, or Batman before he's Batman.
Where are the other drugs going?
Yeah. Where is memes? What's taking him so long?
Well, nonetheless, let's before he gets on though, let's go talking memes. I would still like it if you tried to make your way here, but right now there's like a couple other points about your video that I was wanting to make. I
And also Night Shift, hit me up on Discord or YouTube or something.
How much?
I'd be happy to anytime.
Well, I might have to give Night Shift a new invite into my Discord because I don't think you guys share a server together. But
I have a Discord account. I could send it. Or yeah, we'll set something up after the live stream.
Yeah. Anyway, so I don't know of how much of the live stream that you had listened to. How much of that live stream did you listen to?
Just the part about me.
Okay, so you did.
I heard a little bit of other stuff, but I kind of was mostly focused on that.
So you did hear a little bit about the part where I was saying I would say that nobody completely owns the means of production unless you're talking about chattel slavery, like we did a little bit earlier, where a person was kidnapped and then sold to another person, and that other person owns the person who was kidnapped. You know.
What I think you guys were saying there, and if you're not done, keep going.
Yeah, I would say that in a way, the means of production is still partially owned even by the proletarian because they get a wage. I mean, it's not like the bourgeois person, the employer, is keeping all of the means of the production, keeping all the wages to themselves. They might be keeping most of it ultimately out of the individual product that the proletarian, the employee, makes. But nonetheless, he still gives back a wage. And once he stops making a wage, of course, you know that I would make the point of the employee can like quit that job if they wanted to, and likely would. But nonetheless, I would say that is a bit of a flaw with the Marxian philosophy in regards to the means of production. I mean, you could make a point that employers own most of it, but still there is part of it being owned by the employee as well because they get a wage.
Yes. So what you're saying, what you're doing under Marxism, labor power and means of production are different things. The means of production is not what people do. The means of production is the tools and facilities only. The human part of it is what's known as labor. A machine can't do. I mean, a machine, I guess, could in the future with automation potentially, but Marx would view automation as putting a bunch of labor power from a human into a machine that slowly pushes it out over the lifespan of the machine, like an auto part manufacturing robot. Basically, you put a whole bunch of labor into it, and then it allows it to do it. But because it's a tool, it would be considered a means of production. But labor power, what you're referring to, is something that you do own individually. If you work for a company, you do not own the means of production. You are only selling your labor power for a wage. Unless you own stock in the company, you do not own the company.
Okay.
Or the tools or the means of production, even if you work them.
So you're talking about the tools and the middling process of making making money. That's what the means of
the status, the structure of the business.
Okay, to clarify, the means of production is the middle-end process to get an income.
Yes,
it's not the income itself.
For both the capitalist and the proletariat. The bourgeois and the proletariat both have a relationship to the means of production where the bourgeois owns it and makes profit off of the work that the proletariat does using the means of production and gives them a wage as a part of the profit that they generate.
Well, might I just say that that term almost means nothing to me at that point then?
Well, then the word tool means nothing to you then.
It means nothing to me as far as the morality of capitalism.
Yeah.
To be more specific.
Yeah, and I would agree. It's a moral neutral term. It's just a term. It means tools that company uses to generate money that the proletariat work and that the bourgeois own. So in the instance of Kate Upton, the means of production is not her body.
Yeah, I don't know if my own point is being understood as well as it could be, but we'll just move on. I would have to think of a better way to articulate it.
Let me finish because I can explain using Kate Upton. So Kate Upton is the resource. Her body is the resource, I guess, because they have to take pictures of it. But her labor power is her posing. But she does not own the camera equipment. She does not own the editing software. She does not own the magazine printing apparatus. She does not own the trucks that deliver them, the planes and everything like that. That all belongs to Johnny Vogue or whoever, or Sports Illustrated or whatever. The other proletariat that work for Sports Illustrated or whatever work the cameras, work the computers, work the machines, and they all get paid their own wage. She gets paid a particularly high wage because she is the talent, as it were, but it also works with actors in movies and commercials and stuff. Actors are working using their labor. They get famous and get highly paid, but they're still not owning, like the Weinstein Company owns Quentin Tarantino's films. So he still has to work under Harvey Weinstein even after everything. But Quentin could probably start his own production company if he wanted to, but he is technically a part of a piece of the proletariat in that way, even though he's the director of many great films.
All right. Deadgummit memes, where are you? I guess if you're going to talk about all the necessary products for producing the magazine that has Kate Upton's picture on it, well then by that
she doesn't own, unless she owns stock in Sports Illustrated. She doesn't own the product.
By that logic, then Kate Upton's own body is an essential ingredient for making that magazine. Because who else would they put on there? I mean, they could like find a different model with
the other person that they use,
equivalent or even sexier body. But nonetheless, it's.
But I have a response to that.
Wait, no. I want to finish my point here. Then I would say by that means, but by that point, then she does own at least partially the means of production because she owns her own body.
Her body, yes. So what you're saying is that you're considering her body a part of the means of production, and I would say
by your logic, anyways, by your logic.
But from your understanding, let me explain it further. So her body would be, as I mentioned earlier, the resource. For instance, if you were creating coal power and you were owning a coal mine, you own the land of the coal, and the coal is part of the product, but the coal is the resource that the means of production is being used to gather and generate and then sell for the profit. So her body would be like coal in that situation. Well, she just owns the land where the coal is because it's her body. But unless they buy her, it's not. Yeah.
Well, it seems to be that we're on the same page of the concept as far as her own body being part of the means of production for producing the magazine.
In the sense as a resource.
Yes, as a resource. So by that logic, she essentially owns part of the means of production.
Yeah, but no, not quite, because let's think of a tree. For
I would disagree. I would say yes.
Well, let me finish. Okay, sure, but let me say this. So imagine a tree instead of a human person. You can throw money at the tree all you want, and it will not turn into a chair. What you need to do is use a tool and labor power to convert that tree into a chair. In the example of Kate Upton, she can stand on the street and model all she wants. But someone needs to take the pictures and gather that resource and then print it on other things and sell it in order for it to become profitable.
Well, obviously, but talking about trees and then people, it's not quite equivalent because
wood is the resource in the tree.
Because people are like cognizant individuals who can do different
movies as an example too.
What?
I could use movies as an example. The end product is
at first I thought you said boobies, and I was all like, okay.
No, movies. I could maybe, but I'm not as prepared for that. So movies are a similar example in that the film is the end product. Okay. And the actors need to use their labor of acting, which is their resource that they contribute. It's similar. It's basically the same as labor power in her instance, because the resource is her labor that they are extracting for a profit. Mm-hmm. If she owned her own studio and set up her own modeling and photography agency, she could sell pictures of her body on her own, but then she wouldn't be able to put them on magazines unless she owned a magazine as well, or they bought them from her.
Ultimately, I mean, I guess this is the point of where that I would say that it means nothing, the concept of the means of production and the concept of the class thing as well, because you say that unless she owns her own studio, I would say that right now, currently, she has plenty of money to start her own studio and hire her own like marketing agent too, because I do not think that she has marketing savvy. But
I could sell my house and car and buy.
Wait. So this is
that I do. Just because I have the potential to own it doesn't mean I do own it.
Smiles. So I'm sorry to like be a jerk, but you're, like,
I apologize
a little bit too much, like interrupting more than me. But as I was trying to say, this is where I would say that the concept of the different classes and the means of production means essentially nothing, because in spite of whether or not you want to technically call her a proletarian, she's still very well off within society in general. And I guess
the class is not. I'm sorry. Continue.
No, go ahead. I was pretty much wrapping up.
Okay.
I'll address my thing a little bit later.
Under Marxism, class is not defined by net worth. You could be the richest person in the world, but still a member of proletariat if you don't own anything.
I understand
she's still a proletariat. Hey, memes, here you are.
I completely understand that. That's why that I said a little bit earlier, if you want to, in spite of whether you want to technically call her a proletarian, she's still well within society. That's what my point was. That was my point to say that I think essentially this whole concept of class means nothing as far as the morals of an economic system goes. Because here's the thing with a whole lot of communists and even stock Dems like Bernie Sanders, for example. They
Can we remove the banner at the bottom?
Yeah. Well, okay.
Yeah, it's just been there for a while.
I'll just read it very quickly. One question: why does he have red on one side of his head and black or dark gray on the other? Is he going for the Two-Face type look?
For anarcho, black, anarchist, communism, red.
Well, I'm sure it was mostly a joke because Conundrum
I put a
said that
I in the chat
looked like a discount or Batman villain. Excuse me.
Yes.
Does that mean you're a hybrid?
Me? No. Well, anarchism and communism are actually synonymous, so they're the same thing. But there's a group of people who call themselves ANCAPs, so we have to separate ourselves from them.
Mm-hmm.
And they took the word libertarian, even though it originally belonged to us, but they co-opted it as well.
And that's where things kind of get confusing. I'm like, wait. So if I go kind of like all around this sign and
socialist, think of it like that.
I feel like we need a better tool to kind of like try to classify different things because it really seems like it's like wait. I don't know about a horseshoe, but I'm like at some point or another, it's like we seem to be coming full circle here. I'm like, all right, maybe there's some modicum that actually kind of.
That's why there's
okay. PSA Stitch. Yeah. We understand you're part of like the PSA Stitch, like the S-class saying horseshoe theory exists, people. You're one of those enlightened centrist memes of destruction.
No, is PSA Stitch, is he S-class? Because he totally might be, and I like PSA Stitch, and I actually think he's actually reasonable and stuff, and he does actually know a lot of folks, and he is within certain industries. And
I would say that he's definitely S-class because he is the head of S-class.
Oh. I
don't know who PSA Switch is.
Have you not ever seen PSA Stitch's secondary channel of his live streams?
Oh wait, I do know who that's the guy who's the cartoon with like the mouth with the teeth. He's got like a suit and a black head. Yes, I have seen him before. I haven't seen him in a long time.
Yeah, the shadow person with the wide smile.
Well, he's also a person too.
Yeah, I know that.
But anyway,
I have not seen him in real life. I haven't seen him in a long time.
Okay, so very quickly, a couple of things I want to do right here. One, I would like to introduce Memes of Destruction. Hello, Memes. First time having you on my primary channel.
Hey, guys. What's going on?
Hey.
Yes. And the second thing would be, so what discount Markiplier... I think Conundrum was calling you that.
Yeah, he had discount Markiplier saying we should not watch movies or read magazines. I'm kind of confused. That's a very good question.
I
will answer it when I can.
I kind of want to defend you a little bit. I mean,
thank you.
It's a little bit. I mean, I know that it's a question, so it ain't technically a straw man, the conundrum, but nonetheless, that's not really Smile's point. His point isn't that people should like stop watching them or consuming them. He's saying that those products should be owned differently. The production of those products should be owned differently.
What I think he's saying is something against leftists liking something about the leftists generally not liking commodities, which is not what I'm referring to here. But generally, that is true. It doesn't mean we shouldn't watch movies or buy magazines. It means that the people in the movies and on the magazines don't own the companies, and so they are then workers because they're doing work by acting in the films or posing for the pictures. But unless they own stock in Vogue or the fucking or MGM or something. I don't know if that's even still around, or Warner Brothers or something. Unless they own stock in those companies, they don't have any ownership over those companies, regardless of how many works of theirs that they star in.
Or if they own the cameras and whatnot. I mean, like
they did.
Yeah, like you said a little bit earlier, the cameras and all the different stuff that goes into producing the magazine, including Kate Upton's own body. That I mean that Well, for first of all, Kate Upton herself owns a part of the media production because she obviously owns herself. That product of Kate Upton, sexiest person of Vogue or whatever.
A brand.
Yeah,
She
part of
has
the
her
brand.
brand.
Yeah, she
it,
does have her own
wouldn't be there. It wouldn't be there if she wasn't working. If she
But a brand isn't a
did not
company.
decide to voluntarily
Mm.
give herself
Yeah,
up,
well,
her own
again,
body up for that. Well,
I don't think anything has
give up her
anything
own body,
wrong.
that might be a misnomer.
Right. I'm sorry to cut you guys off, but I don't think really anyone has anything against employee ownership. Like, I mean, that's something that I think
no, and that's
most
not what
people
we're
encourage. Just the method and how we're actually defining that. Because I know DarkCon, you were talking about almost like if you own the cameras, if you have basically your own tools, the tools of the trade. So
Yes.
whether you're a carpenter, a plumber, a photographer, or something like that, it's like, okay, you have that. It's just the way we've generally employed it previously is usually via general contractors. And there does appear to be new legislation. I forget, was it Prop 130 or I apologize, I'm probably getting that wrong.
No idea.
But basically it was a thing that was affecting Uber and Lyft. Basically saying that the way that proposition was written, they were considering maybe pulling out because if you are essentially working like standard hours and stuff, even though they define you as a contractor, you would essentially be an employee. And I've worked as a contractor before, and don't get me wrong, there are some great parts about it. There are some not so great parts, and a lot of that might also depend on the industry, where you're working, who you're working for. There are a lot of variables here. I mean, I think this is the way things are going, and if it continues to go this way, last time I checked, I'm pretty sure like YouTube and Google, they're located in California. And if folks happen to be partners on the YouTube Partner Program, I mean, I don't know, does that end up making them employees?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I think that might actually solve a lot. Oh, sorry to cut you off. But my big thing is we have these new tools. We have this new technology. And a lot of the disagreement I feel just very often, most folks just want to live a good life and be left alone. And we can argue about what type of a social safety net or programs available for the citizenry and the people that are working within these communities and neighborhoods to try to help take care of folks, to make sure folks don't get destroyed, along with maybe not completely stifling the ability to actually grow and develop new technologies and products. I mean, like, we'll always be arguing about some things, but I think we're actually at the cusp right now where we literally have the technology, where if we have the will, and can actually freaking get over ourselves, we can actually achieve great things. Dude, in a millennia, I'd like to see Star Trek. I would like to see Star Trek. Maybe not the year 2200. You know what? We'll give it an extra 1,000 years, where we slow down a little bit. We have those world wars. By the year 3200, we should have the Enterprise.
Hopefully earlier than that.
Oh no, I like.
I totally agree. We are so close. We are this close to post-scarcity. We could probably already have it, but we don't because capitalism holds it back. I can explain why if you'd like.
Staying a little bit on topic though, to go back to the video though, and arguing based off of current society of where that there is still scarcity within resources.
I don't believe that he has seen it. To be fair, have you seen my video or his response to it?
I don't think so. Were you? What was the general TLDW?
It was a reaction video to a channel called My Two Cents and his understanding of classism through the lens of Kate Upton and me correcting him, in my view.
DarkCon, were you playing that video in the past week or so?
Like 2 weeks ago or something like that.
Okay, because I think I listened to your response to it, at least part of it. So.
Yeah,
you saw my little cartoon Antifa-looking guy? It's on the thumbnail.
I usually listen because I have the YouTube preview and stuff, so I can mute it on my phone, just kind of listen.
I do the same.
Yeah, it was the one of where I was all like, means of destruction. We're talking about the means of production. And then Reckless Trucker was all like, too much rhyming.
Yeah, that's a clever name. I'm glad that you got that. And with no numbers, too. You're the first person to claim that. That's a good get. Memes of production.
Well, all I know is the memes of production was taken in all its relevant forms. And sometimes before creation, there must be destruction.
Right? Yeah.
It's also what it says in the Blue Eyes White Dragon card for Yu-Gi-Oh! The ultimate engine of destruction. And I'm like, wait a second. I have blue eyes. I'm kind of white. I like dragons. I've been a scaly basically since preschool. So yeah, it's like I'm gonna claim this before the alt-right does. It's for the control alt-right. Furries are welcome.
Right, there you go. You even look a little bit like Kaiba with your hair like that.
Thank you.
So there you go.
You just earned so many bonus points. I like this, man.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I'm assuming.
Screw Star Trek. I don't want to be a Borg drone.
He, him. Thank you for not assuming. I like that. Look at you.
I did. Well, here's the thing. Why not be respectful?
I appreciate that. Yes, I identify as a male. I am a cis white male. I am the devil incarnate, but I am a good one at least.
You're bisexual, so you're not quite the devil incarnate, but nonetheless, Night Shift. I would like
him or me.
No, you Smiles. I know that you said that before.
Yeah, I think I was bisexual. I dated a guy for a while, but I'm not. Didn't work out.
One of my friends did it. He's like, I wasn't sure. He's like, it really wasn't.
DarkCon in a mask. Yes, mostly for the sake of the aesthetic. My 2 cents. I look to possibly do this a little bit more often because I think it, in a way, looks badass, and plus it hides the nervous smile that I sometimes give off way too often. That makes
I need to cover my eyes. I have very shifty eyes and stuff. They have the crazy eye. Dude, well, here's the thing. If DarkCon, if you're gonna do that, I'm sorry for the complete tangent. Dude, you have your green screen right behind you. Put like some Call of Duty or like something on, dude. It would make it so freaking amazing.
Yeah, if you had like a Fallout background or something like that, some like destroyed landscape or something.
Just because you literally have it right behind you and it's actually set up.
Originally, I was going to have this set up on OBS, but unfortunately, YouTube's new YouTube Studio doesn't want to work for shit. But anyway, so to get a little bit back on point, Night Shift, I would address this chat comment of yours, but that would begin a little bit too off subject. So, and my 2 cents, being the man of the hour right here, is joining in chat. Hello, 2 cents. In DarkCon in a mask, and again, it's for the aesthetic.
I bet he hasn't even seen the video.
But nonetheless, well, actually, he watched my response stream to it.
Oh,
but
cool. I'm not offended. Don't worry. I have like 50 subscribers. I'm like nothing right now.
To kind of go talking about the video a little bit more, though, one of the points that you mentioned, or I guess my 2 cents mentioned a little bit earlier, is that people like Karl Marx and even Bernie Sanders like to say that people who are poorer or part of the proletariat are inherently oppressed. And then my 2 cents comes back saying, well, then, okay, so you say they are oppressed. But here's the thing. Yeah. My 2 cents comes back responding that Kate Upton isn't oppressed because even though that she like still labors, with the different types of sexy poses and whatnot.
She's being exploited, perhaps not oppressed. Exploitation still exists, I should say.
Well, then exploitation did nothing wrong, I'd say.
Well, a lot of times, oppression, at least what many people we usually refer to it's often situational. It can depend on the power dynamic, if somebody happens to be your boss or something, or if you happen to be a beautiful young woman, you might end up getting a number of solicitations or people sliding up in your inboxes that you don't.
She doesn't business, but ultimately the point that I was going to make, my 2 cents goes saying, the left keeps on saying the proletariat are oppressed and whatnot, and if we are going to technically okay. Well, you use the word.
I'll rescind oppressed. I will take that back, but I will replace it with exploited.
Okay, yeah, but the point that I was about to make, when I made a comeback during that live stream, I was about to say that Kate Upton is super filthy rich herself through her labor, so technically she isn't really oppressed. She could even retire without having to work another day in her life if she lived more meagerly, if she did not take a monthly cruise, whatever else people in the top 5% do.
But she's free to do what she wishes.
That's
the important thing, right? Yep.
Of course, I'm just can afford it. I'm just posing theories or advice that she could do as far as if she wanted to not work a single freaking day in her life ever again. But she's doing what she loves. So good for her. And I'd say that there is nothing wrong with what Kate Upton does. Maybe Kate Upton completely debunk the theory itself of class theory within Marxism, but I would still say that Kate Upton still debunks the idea that it's bad.
I thought she was a musician.
I disagree as well. I don't agree with that either.
No,
what did you say?
I thought she was a musician.
Oh no, she's a model. She was the one who looked like the girl on the cover of Grand Theft Auto 5. She sued them.
She's a very attractive woman. I'm thinking
you can Google her. Just Google Kate Upton. You've seen her before, I'm sure.
Okay, I probably heard her too music. Probably maybe
I don't know
overlap
if
there.
She may.
Oh, okay.
It's good, but I don't think so. She's a model first and foremost.
No, cool. It's it's a great industry.
Modeling
it's
is
a very
a great
tough
industry nowadays, especially with Instagram. Tons of cosplayers make tons of bank off of it.
Well, this is the thing, and right there, what you just brought up, Smiley. I think this is kind of just an example of what I was trying to kind of communicate a little bit earlier. It's like with social media, it's like, okay, let's face it, folks like looking at pretty people and folks that they find attractive. We all find different things attractive, and now you're able to kind of do this and that, and like being able to do something social like this. I think this is a chance for a lot of folks to contribute, maybe do something they actually enjoy doing, and if they can earn an honest living. And my thing is, even if you don't necessarily agree with exactly how they're making their money or something, as long as people are honest with other folks and you have consenting parties, it's like, I don't really see a problem. And I think if we have more of these conduits that are fair to people and help provide people with the maximum amount of opportunity to just try to like achieve what they want, I think that could actually help solve a lot of these problems.
And I agree with almost all of that, if not all of it, actually. What exactly are your views, memes? Where do you stand? Have you taken the political compass test?
Well, okay. Before I was about to ask him that here in a little bit, but first I wanted to address Metal Minister. We get it, DarkCon. You've got a stiffy to say for Kate Upton. Sheesh. Actually,
I do too, don't worry.
I still prefer black chicks. So sorry.
And I think that's awesome about you. That's really cool.
Oh yeah, how dare a neo-Nazi that likes black women?
That's dope.
Well, actually, no. Just a little FYI, people. Just a little FYI, people. The Dark Conservatarian is actually not a neo-Nazi, white nationalist, or fascist of any sorts.
Can't say that if you are. Well, we're all bigoted in our own way. Even
I was going to make a very racist. I was going to make a very racist remark, but I'll try to avoid it.
No,
Go on. If it's funny,
go on, you fucking edgelord.
DarkCon, would you agree with this statement that I also agree with? I like big butts and I cannot lie.
Yes.
Definitely. Fuck yeah.
I agree with that as well.
I cannot lie. How the fuck is that even like comedically racist, memes?
Yeah, no, that's not racist.
Because I was stereotyping black folks for having
okay.
Not only black women that have big asses. So that
no. Well, that's the thing. There's overlaps, there's intersex, and there's beautiful little. I'm sorry. This is why I was late. I spent too much time on the internet. Rule 34.
We don't even know for sure if Mr. Mix-a-Lot prefers black women. He just likes big asses.
Well, it was
so
a
it's not
celebration.
even a racialized statement in the song.
Well, and that was dude. I remember growing up in school, and just for some reason, I don't know, maybe this is just my impression from society. No, and dude, until that really came out, a lot of folks were like, "Well, a girl's not supposed to have a big butt," or something like that. All of a sudden, he comes out and stuff, and it's like
that black women all have big asses, but all women
people look very different.
Many women have big asses, not all of them of any race or anything. Creed.
Well, except
some
for
women
Asians.
have big asses, some don't.
Oh, however, except for Asians. Oh no, DarkCon, he just stereotypes Asians.
No, there's some big butt Asians. I've seen some big-titted.
No, you're right.
The internet's pretty big.
Let's rein in the misogyny, gentlemen. I realize this is again why I was late. My apologies for that. So let's modern politics and stuff.
Late because of big butts. What? You were late because of racism? What were you late for?
I like many things.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm glad you're all.
I'm not even sure what I really just said right there.
Memes just got called out by Smiles, y'all.
And I don't know if that was the case, but that was what I got from that.
Oh, are we flirting?
I
don't know. Are we? I wasn't thinking.
Oh, I don't know. These things happen. Don't go through my catalog.
And set up, yeah, right.
Shut the fuck up, you.
Well, as we know, actually,
read the chat.
You weren't here for this, but I am straight. Actually, you might have been here for this, but yes, it is confirmed. I used to think, and I still goddamn wish I was bisexual, but I'm not. I'm straight, and it sucks.
Oh, okay.
Well, sometimes
I
things
dated
are
a black guy
situational.
for a while, but he just happened to be black. I didn't specifically date a black guy. He was
Well,
actually
people like
very nice.
camaraderie and partnership. Yeah.
Okay, so anyway.
And I am straight, unfortunately, so it didn't work out.
Unfortunately, you freaking cuck. No,
I wish I was bi. God damn it!
I'm completely.
I'm cucked of the entire male gender.
The way DarkCon's moving, he kind of looks like a Cthulhukin right now.
Yeah, right. I don't know.
Feels like you have tentacles, at least from
there we
the
go.
angle of the light.
Yeah, it is the American flag.
Those different stripes on
Ooh,
my blackout American flag. But
anyway,
anyways,
we should collab sometime. You seem really cool.
Totally.
I like
Anyway, so
big,
let's continue the conversation.
so I like big boobs and I cannot lie, says Mikhail.
I used to like boobs more, and I've moved to
obviously.
butts. I used to not like butts, but I like them more now. I don't know what it is.
I like
switched.
butts more than boobs.
Anyway, this
myself,
is not
but-
very productive, but it's fine.
Yeah,
I like the diversity of things.
So,
Agreed.
I think we're a
Variety is
little
the
bit.
spice of life.
Anyway, I think we're like a bit done with the talking about the response video specifically. Unless Smiles, there was some actual point that you wanted to make in response to my earlier point about how I was all like, "Oh, exploitation," and the fact that Kate Upton is still a proletarian and is still very well off. And I said nothing wrong with that. And you were like, "I disagree with." Is there something that you want to say?
Well,
or we save it for another time?
I do. I stand by what I said. So I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to sum up. Slavery can exist under capitalism. It doesn't have to, but it generally seems to have trended away from it, which is nice. Even in terms of market forces only, because of exploiting labor without paying people gives them low motivation. So it seems intrinsically is it not only a moral failing, but it is also a bad for business, which is actually good to know.
I would say that it depends on the type of exploitation. I would say that it depends on the type of exploitation.
Yes, so exploitation specifically. Kate Upton is still technically being exploited because her labor power is going to pay a capitalist who owns the business, Sports Illustrated, for instance, who is not contributing any labor. He only owns the means of production and makes money off of what she's doing. So she's still technically being exploited because a portion of what she generates is going away.
And like I said, like during that live stream, this is something that really bugs me about far leftists is that the rich people, they still like bring forth the ideas and the different strategizing and marketing that goes into the company. I mean, there's sort
CEOs,
of there's sort of the brains in it all. I mean, there is like, for example, Steve Jobs, who's a bit of an asshole to his peers in trying to start up Apple.
Elon Musk too. Jeff Bezos. Most capitalists.
Elon Musk. I do not know what his story is, but I do not know what Elon Musk's story is, but I know that he did not start Tesla, but he bought it off of someone else.
Yeah, I don't know much about that.
But I would say that there's nothing wrong with buying a company that was already started up by someone else. I mean, it's technically not their own effort, be it brains or brawn, to start up that company, Elon Musk specifically, but he still had to do something in order to get that money in the first place to buy that company that was started by someone else who consensually wanted to sell that company off to him.
Not intrinsically. He could have been born rich and just was able to afford to buy the company. He did in real life make money and then use that money to buy it. But that doesn't, just because you have money doesn't mean you've made it for yourself personally.
Well, he helped start PayPal and then
but in this case, he did. I'm just saying intrinsically that is not the case.
Oh, no. Once you have money, it's easier to make money.
That's true too. But you can also be born with money and born without money. And so born with money have a much easier time rising than the people without it under capitalism.
Obviously.
Yes.
What I was going to say?
That's wrong. I think that
as far as people being rich or whatever, and there's being something wrong with that, I think that it is like the burden of proof is on the far leftists who want to point out as well. Okay, anyone in general, because let's not just talk about.
We still haven't defined memes over here yet, by the way.
What?
We don't know exactly where he
I know. I was going to ask that in a little bit out of.
I feel like we should get it out of the way, but go ahead.
But nonetheless, to sort of continue. Damn it! Sorry, I interrupted. As far as calling out a rich person and how they got their money and that their ownership of that money and of that company is illegitimate, I say that the burden of proof is on the person making that claim. As far as how immoral their status is, like I would say, for example, Ford is somewhat illegitimate in that it got bailouts, for example. For what exactly? What exactly?
GM got. Are you talking more recently? Because GM originally took bailouts back in I think 2008, 2009. Ford did not. They actually took out about $20 billion in operating capital because they realized the industry was probably because GM. Because remember, the U.S. government bought and did end up making a profit off of helping save GM. Ford did not at that time because I remember I was kind of paying attention. And I like cars and everything like that. I actually need to fix my car, but. My big thing is, okay, I hear like, okay, well, how guilty is somebody of this or that? It's like, well, how about this? Let's not hate on the players. Let's hate on the game. What seems to be the fundamental issue here? And I want to ask Dark on this first, and I want to get your reactions to this, Smiley. Is ultimately aren't what we kind of
know where you stand.
I want to know
what your answer to the question is, actually.
Let me ask this first, and then we'll get right to that, because it should be an interesting story. But, okay, Darkon, would you say a lot of the problem is not necessarily because all these different bosses are necessarily out just gunning, trying to completely, like, squeeze everything out of their employees in basically a very malicious way? Is it not the fact that, okay, if you're a publicly traded company, you have a fiduciary... I realize I'm fighting in and out of dragon form right there.
I know, it looks like you were doing magic.
I like wizards, but all I know is basically if you have a fiduciary duty to your shareholders to maximize the return on their investment, that's not always going to be the best thing for the folks working for you, because you look a lot of the time, it's like, all right, so-and-so just laid off 5,000 or 10,000 people. Their stock goes up. Why? Oh, you just lost that expensive labor, benefits, this, that, maybe pensions and stuff like that. Yeah, it's a way to raise your stock price, but those people just lost their livelihood right there. It's like, okay.
So what is your question?
My thing is, aren't we just arguing over the way the system is currently set up? Because if you have a fiduciary duty, that is the law. And if they are following the law, just because something is the law doesn't necessarily make it moral. So basically, is that what we're kind of arguing about a large part?
I mean, I'm not arguing based off of legality for one thing, and secondly, arguing off of economics is always an argument of whether or not the system is how it is, moral or immoral. But what is your
my thing is, do you think fiduciary duty to shareholders is one of these driving factors in the
is that a good driving factor for humanity? I think, is that what you're asking? Is profit a good motivator for humanity?
Should this be our primary factor?
Yes, good question. Yeah.
Should it be the primary factor?
Should the primary goal to generate profit?
I don't think it should be the primary factor. I mean, okay, I do define myself the idea.
I agree with you right now.
I do define myself as a capitalist in the area that I am for free market capitalism. But as far as what motivates an individual person, that is for them to determine themselves, whether it be profit or some moral, some virtue of, moral achievement, I guess is the way that I would put it for right now.
Yeah, and DarkCon is not far right. He is. You are, as you said, in the libertarian square, but you're not completely ANCAP. You believe that the state has some responsibility to curtail that motivation.
I do believe, but to put it a different way, Memes, I do believe that profit is one of the factors to determine is one of the factors to help a person just determine to be a better actor in society, in a way.
Right. Well, I mean, you don't want to drive yourself into oblivion. So if you go off on an endeavor and you're just pissing all this money and just going to put yourself on the streets, like, that's not smart. So I understand it. Obviously. So profit, as we're saying, basically being able to do better, being able to bring yourself up right here. And now Smiley, would I think you kind of said you kind of agreed. So
well, I agreed with the beginning. I didn't agree with everything, though, because I believe that capitalism inherently, the profit motivation above all else, as it is, because is not the best thing for humanity. And in fact, while it may have been necessary, which I believe it has actually been necessary as a stage, it is no longer helpful and is sort of cracking and collapsing and actually beginning to hold us back as humanity. Because in order to, the best thing that humanity can do is if everybody can achieve their dreams, because everybody wants to help humanity. Everyone deep down, like if you ask everybody, like what is like, who cares about what you want to do? Forget about money. What would you want to do for a living? And they'd be like, well, I want to help people and I don't know how. Maybe through art, maybe through, firefighting, maybe through, whatever else. But whatever they're doing, they want to contribute to humanity in a positive way. And the fact that you need to purchase things like food, healthcare, education, and stuff puts a barrier in that way, and it prevents us from being able to do that. So we can achieve other people's dreams by working for them, and eventually, perhaps, maybe if we're lucky, make enough money to then do what we want to do. But I think the fact that we have to go through all that first and be able to basically earn ourselves a living, literally earn our place in existence by not starving from poverty. Basically, that's what capitalism sort of likes to dictate, or proselytize, that's a weird word, but likes to preach that if you're poor, it's your fault. Whereas I don't believe that. I think that circumstances outside of your control, including the entire economic system, contribute to that more than
believe that it isn't
to live.
I don't believe
so
that it is.
I'm a post-capitalist, Marxist, anarcho-communist. Now you may talk.
I don't believe that it is like 110% their own fault, but there is still the point to be made that if they do not have like, I would say that there is a little bit of a point to be made that if a person does not have a life savings or some kind of backup fund or whatever else, then that ultimately, in a way, is their fault.
Mm-hmm. And I disagree with that.
Unfortunately, Dark. No, I hear you. I've always heard it's like you should have like
my videos reversed.
Yeah, it's no, I hear you. All the time. It's like, all right, it's like, oh yeah, you should have like 3 to 6 months of like your living expenses stuff saved. But it's like, dude, straight up, like there's so many folks that are literally just living paycheck to paycheck that it's like to even attempt to even try to do a change, they miss potentially losing everything. You got that with the pandemic. I mean, people are getting ready to get like evicted. I know there's like some new legislation, but folks are gonna still have to pay that things in full, dude. I had like friends down in Texas and stuff, and she's telling me it's like, dude, like she ran like a travel agency and everything. It's like, nobody's really to Italy.
Wait. You go talking about there are lots of people that are living paycheck to paycheck. Well, just as an arbitrary example, maybe some of those people should, instead of having turkey sandwiches for lunch every day at their job, they should like switch to.
Okay, but why should they give up the more expensive healthy option to achieve the less healthy, cheaper option so that they can keep generating money for someone else and eventually maybe save up to buy turkey?
Well, we're talking about a person like putting some money into their own savings as an emergency fund, or putting.
But they can't afford to.
What if they can't? What if they can't?
What if they can't afford to? What if they're living paycheck to paycheck?
Well, stay within the rhetorical situation that I was talking about, though. The person who is like cutting back on his lunches. That was what more of my point was. If they can like divert that, I see memes down there.
Okay.
But if I was to like finish my point though, sorry, not sure if we're gonna have to pass up on that question because we're having such a fast-paced conversation. But anyway, but the point is that if they cut back from eating turkey sandwiches daily for lunch at work, instead they eat peanut butter sandwiches for lunch every day at work. Instead, they can like divert that money more into building up in a new tool or something else that can ultimately, in the long run, increase their income so that they can go back to not only eating turkey sandwiches, but also be able to afford more luxuries in life outside of turkey sandwiches. But I'm going to let Memes go first since he raised his hand first. Smiles. Go, Memes.
Okay, so I appreciate the turkey sandwich discussion, but while we're talking about saving a couple of bucks here or there on turkey versus peanut butter sandwiches, must I remind you that our conservative Republican president happily signed an up to $6.2 trillion spending bill that is such an obscene amount of money that if there's one thing I learned from this past primary campaign from Andrew Yang, it's that math apparently is important. So I did some math. There are about 210 million adult Americans in these United States. Had we divided that 210 million into that $6.2 trillion, we literally could have given every adult American just under $30,000. It's like $29,521 that you're saying that We couldn't have done that and literally just given folks, be like, all right, 3 months, everything except basic logistics and stuff to survive, shut down. We're going to pay everyone $10,000 a month in UBI. If you're still working, guess what? You're getting a $10,000 a month bonus. Thank you. For everyone else, make your expenses, close your businesses. On places like airlines and individual businesses, well, they need operating capital and stuff. Really? You don't have like tens of thousands of folks that work for you that, I don't know, if a company needs money, how do they get money? They issue stock. Oh, what's the consequence? You get some employee ownership of some of these companies. And I see Wall Street back up around $29,000 and millions of people getting ready to lose their homes.
For one thing, the question is, should that vast amount of money be spent in the first place? I'm considerably more fiscally conservative than Trump is. If I was in his shoes, I would not have signed that big of a spending bill, much less to fund corporations. But even like the average Joe citizen, I do not know if I would have done some short-term UBI-esque type of bill that he was trying to push forward, along with some people in both houses of legislature.
I would argue this is why you don't spend money fervently for situations like a plague. So when you got to swipe the government credit card, you get a good rate.
There's a little bit of a different spending incentive between the average Joe citizen who might. For me to finish off those, Smiles, I will say that there is a bit of a different spending incentive between a private sector citizen and a public sector this is supposed to be servant, that being the president. I mean, the person who works in the private sector has to determine and debate with himself on whether or not he wants to cut down on his lunches to go down to peanut butter sandwiches instead of turkey sandwiches, whereas a politician, they basically have, by proxy, I do not know what the would be for this, but somewhat to an extent, to an extent they have infinite spending power, because of the Federal Reserve. Although there is a point to be made that they are like devaluing the value of the dollar by printing crap tons of money, but it's because of that paper tiger of an economy, that being the Federal Reserve, as to why that Trump is able to, get the mindset that he can do that shit. The mindset between a politician in that matter is different between the private sector worker that has a completely different mindset on how he wants to handle his lunches. Anyway, go with your point, my two, or excuse me, sorry, Smiles, and then we'll ask Memes of what his beliefs are, and then we'll get to talking about 2020 politics.
If he wants to go first and explain his politics real quick, I could do it. Otherwise, I'll go first, because I would like to know as soon as possible.
Oh, okay. Well, no. Well, the sheer fact that this is even an important conversation is probably very telling of the time we live in. So, because I completely think I'll listen to politicians on the news, and I'm like, they're a Republican or a Democrat. Just so I'm trying to frame things so it makes sense.
Question, Memes. What would you call yourself ideologically?
If you don't have a name for your political beliefs, then I'll go first, and then you can go, because it's more nuanced, and I can actually help you maybe find the name. Would that be the case? I consider myself a pathfinder. What's a pathfinder? Okay. We're
like Jedi, except we require more kyber crystals.
It sounds like a nerdier description of a freaking centrist.
Sounds like a hippie. I like it. Yeah, centrist. It sounds a little bit like.
My thing is, it's like, all right, my default, what I would say in modern context, it's like, I'm a liberal that believes in progress. Because a lot of the things, it's like, all right, it's like, I don't think I've earned progressive because of some of the means, because a lot of times I might look at, I'll give you a quick example. So as far as like universal health care or something, I happen to live in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We got Romney care and stuff. What a lot of times folks don't mention about Romney care is Governor Romney and the legislature made $1 billion in deep cuts. And like those cuts totally affected people and stuff.
Yikes.
But we paid for it. We made an investment in the system. And this is my argument to a lot of my more progressive and lefty friends and stuff like that. Because if you take away the core of the conservative argument, how are you going to pay for it? Okay, we made these cuts. We've made these investments here. Over time, this is going to yield greater output and everything, so we're going to help pay for it. If you take away like how to pay for it and you actually explain it, Yeah, Republicans and stuff will still argue with you because, well, that's what they're going to do because it's politics. But you take away the core of the conservative argument, I've heard a lot of them say it's like, I wouldn't necessarily mind that, or at least I wouldn't be against it. They might not be for it, but if they're not against it, they're not going to spend all their time and effort fighting you on it. So it's like something we can actually achieve. That's just my opinion.
Okay, so
we'll talk more in the future too.
By the way, hello there in the hello there, incredible Aspie in the chat. It's nice for you to join in the live chat. I have a name for my political beliefs. It's called conservatarian, and yeah, that's pretty much myself as well. But
I'm a conservatarian too, an honorary one. I'd like to think of myself as one.
Jeez, no, Smiles. You are an honorary guest on this podcast, nothing more. But conservatarian,
friend of the show, friend of the show,
friend of the show. I'll take that.
Anyway, so memes of destruction. Like, so basically, you're a centrist, is what you are politically. You don't really have a precise label to sum up your political beliefs. On your economic philosophy, though, would you call yourself a capitalist?
But you're open-minded. You're still not decided.
I mean, capitalism is a great engine for things, but I kind of view capitalism kind of like modern NASCAR in a way. It's like, yeah, we had all these big engines throwing all this fuel, but sometimes if you get too much power there, sometimes you just kind of lose control, kind of like with capitalism. Yeah, we say we're capitalists, but it's like, we've got certain restrictions. We don't necessarily let people sell everything to everybody because, there's going to be, it might sound good, especially like America, but if you actually nuance it out, you're like, yeah, you probably shouldn't sell human beings and stuff like that, because even when I worked up in Match Vegas in New Hampshire, it's like, there was literally a human trafficking bust up there a couple of years ago. It's like, I remember that happening. So it's like, all right, so that's why I'm like, all right, like NASCAR, what they start doing, they put restrictor plates on and stuff like that to kind of balance some of it out. Okay, so you're not necessarily going to do this, and if you're going to do something that many view as maybe more sinful or something, because we've done this with tobacco, we've done this with alcohol in a number of places. It's like, all right, people understand if you're doing something that's not necessarily contributing to positive society, like getting hammered and smoking tobacco and stuff, let's face it, it's a sin tax. You might not want to call it necessarily so, but it's like you're doing something that's not good that may end up costing society. You pay a little more for it, and then you can fund different programs through that, and that's something that's kind of been accepted over the years. Not everyone agrees with it, but
thank you, incredible
okay,
Aspie.
Well, by the way, it sounds like basically in practice you're a capitalist, but philosophically you dream of a better tomorrow, be it like the Star Trek version of socialism.
I see. My thing is, I believe in democratic capitalism. What the heck is democratic?
Socialism is actually what it's called.
No. Well, here's the thing.
Social capitalism.
No. I hear this, but I hear leftists say all the time. It's like, well, why don't we just rebrand? Because all these different names get these stigmas and stuff. Because I remember when all these different libertarian folks were saying, yes, we're alt-right, and they realized Richard Spencer owned altright.com. And it's like all of a sudden, oh no, we're not this. I'm like, all right, you can use certain free market principles, and like folks, my thing is folks helping people within different communities. Yes, we did that on a local basis. Yes, we should do that more. I need to do that more personally. But at the same time, if you have different groups and communities that can actually reach out and help folks within their communities, we all belong to different communities that intersect at one point or another. They'll have some overlap. I'm like, you're saying there aren't enough good folks out there? It's like, I believe most folks are good people. Just because you're a good person doesn't mean you don't do stupid shit, but we do each have our own unique life experience. And when you factor these different things in, along with folks tend to act in their own self-interest, I do believe that explains a lot. But if you could set up a system that incentivized people to do more positive things rather than be like, I just got to destroy these folks over here for whatever reason because I disagree with them, or I'm going to and this is what bothers me, because I see this, and then no matter what somebody does, somebody else does something. It kind of just feeds into like a vicious cycle of hatred. Yeah. And we turned it into a cottage industry.
May I respond to the points now? Thank you. And if I may sum up
before you respond, I just want to read very quickly, because for some reason in the StreamYard chat here, it's not popping up, Night Shift, but he reads,
I made a note of it.
fuck sin taxes.
Oh, it didn't.
I agree, Night
I didn't read
Shift.
that one. Yeah, fair enough. I'm against taxes as well as an anarchist. So what it sounds like to me, if we may stay on this topic for a moment more, it sounds like you are what they call a social democrat, but was actually a social capitalist, which is where we want to socialize capitalism. You basically your belief is you can't make money without having money. It takes money to make money, and so people should not be allowed to reach absolute poverty. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, I just go back to the golden rule. It's like, do unto others as you would have do unto you. I'm like, if I fall upon hard times or something like that, I'll be straight up, dude. I'm bourgeois as fuck. I literally grew up next to a castle, freaking in my like 2 houses down from like a literal castle and stuff like that.
Wealthy doesn't mean bourgeois.
It's all I mean, like
bourgeois society is a thing separate from the explicit bourgeoisie technical definition.
I mean, my dad was also an attorney and stuff, and like, well, my mom was like a literal genius. It's like, dude, I've been very blessed in my life, and dare I say, and I will say, no, I've been privileged. But that is for me to personally say and share, and not necessarily reflect my life experience upon everyone else. So my thing is, I think some very basic things, especially if we are the wealthiest, most powerful country in the world, it's like, I think we can do better than this, because I think a lot of the money that we're even putting into the system, while it may have worked at the time, a lot of folks don't like change. And so, like, if we're doing something, and yeah, it's kind of helping, but we could take that money and reallocate it or invest into something new, leveraging technology, and we could do it so much more efficiently, couldn't we get more bang for our buck actually trying to help people? And there doesn't seem to be incentive for that in the system. Everyone just wants to be like, we just need 2% more, 3% more next year.
Well, thank you for answering my question.
All right. So I
have notes from the points earlier. Remember when I raised my hand twice?
Oh shucks.
Do you want to move on? Because I was kind of
let him get one more. He did raise his hand politely.
Oh, okay, yeah, go ahead, and then we'll move on to talking about 2020 politics. About an hour and a half in. Okay.
Well, hey, it's the nature of a podcast, right? Us leftists, we're not very organized. Anyway, why? So going all the way back to the turkey and peanut butter sandwich discussion. My question is, why should people? You would think that in order to save money, they should, in order to work harder, essentially, and build up their money, they should curtail their eating habits or something like that, or eat at, buy less Starbucks. Yeah, reprioritize their funds rather than, and my response to that is, why should people have to sacrifice their own nutrition? Why can't they just work harder? Why can't isn't that what capitalism wants you to do to make money? Shouldn't you just be able to work harder and earn a higher wage? Unfortunately, wages are generally static.
Well, when you said work harder,
overall static.
Wait. When you say work harder, that kind of implies like take more hours. It doesn't imply get more wages out of an hour's worth of work.
Well, I would agree that perhaps they should be paid more if in order to even save any money at all, you have to sacrifice eating. I think that capitalism has gone too far in that case. You should be able to eat healthily and make money in other ways.
If I may, answer him very quickly, memes. So either one is fine. Whether they want to reprioritize what they put their money into as far as their lunch goes, or they decide, hey, I want to take more hours in this job, or even find another part-time job. Either one is fine. Of course, it's a subjective case-by-case basis. But go on, memes. You were wanting to say something to me?
My big thing is, I'll give you a real quick example. This is something that's newer to me, just because it happens to be my current field. So essentially, I work in a warehouse. I fly around on an electric pallet jack and literally lift things up and put them down all day, stacking pallets out to get delivered to different local grocery stores. And it's like, all right, once you get a certain piece count, you get a raise. Once you hit another certain piece count per hour, you get a raise. I'll be straight up in a job like that. If you can get better nutrition and stuff, I'm pretty sure that's going to affect your work performance and stuff. Yeah. Because if you're flying around and stuff like that, because that's also how you achieve your different quarterly bonuses once you hit a certain level and everything as well. And I mean, some of that, it's like, yeah, you could kind of work more, but it's like, dude, there are folks there like pretty much almost like half my size, dude, and they're like throwing more packages than me. It's like it shows like some of that CrossFit and stuff like that, because like they're just grabbing stuff like this. It's like, oh, you got to reach up. The guy's like flying up there onto like the shelves, grabbing these cases and stuff like that. I'm like, holy crap, these folks are nuts. I'm like, it's freaking awesome though, and it's a good workout. But that just seemed to be a very corollary example. Does this represent every single example in the system we have? No. But I think it's a good example about supply chain.
If I may, I think we may all three of us agree that perhaps since I mean you're not an anti-statist completely, DarkCon. I think we should all agree that right now the government should provide some leverage in order to make sure that people get paid enough so that they can become more healthier, and therefore a fiduciary interest in doing so, because then they work better. So if perhaps the government should increase wages or do things like free healthcare and free healthy food and shelter and things like that. Maybe you don't agree completely, but I think that we can agree somewhere about that.
I'm not an ultimately anti-statist, but overall, I'm against the state as it exists currently. I'm for like reeling it back, definitely, and that would include. Sorry to disappoint you right now, Smiles. That would include minimum wage laws. Okay, so I'm not for the government raising wages. I'm for them getting rid of that law entirely. Okay.
May I rebuttal, or does Memes have something to say?
I think that we should kind of move on.
Okay, we will agree to disagree for now then.
Yeah, and plus I'll have to get back with Mjolnir, man, have a live stream with him talking about 2020 politics, because, damn it, he was supposed to be on here. Austin! But anyway.
You should be here.
So for, to get
Lazy
to the
hippie.
Yeah, he's a hippie. He's very long hair hippie. But anyway, so getting on to talking about the actual title subject of the of the stream, which a person will have to fast forward to like 1 hour, 34 minutes, and 45 seconds to get to.
You should put it in the description or a pinned comment.
I will have to, but yes. So, Memes of Destruction, are you still there, or did you have to?
I am. I'm still currently here.
No video for now.
I got you. The subject of the stream was supposed to be about talking about 2020 politics, because it's such a contentious issue. And actually, the idea of this stream was that I wanted to talk to some leftists in general. Like, I realize that Memes isn't a full-on
which we have done.
In fact, as far as his opinions on cops go, might kind of push him a little bit more towards the right, whereas opposed to some of his other social beliefs might push him a little bit more to the left, putting him like somewhere in the center. But SmileyP here and Mjolnir Man, SmileyP here and Mjolnir Man were definitely leftist. SmileyP being the furthest one of them all. So this was originally supposed to be a live stream talking about mix. Like outnumbering myself, because typically on my live stream, the right wingers outnumbered the leftists, or at least the more vocal leftists.
That's why I had no idea. I'm like, wait a second. When you say 3-on-1, I'm like, does this mean I'm in a 3-on-1? No. Are you in a 3-on-1? What does it say? I mean, I didn't care either way, just because I'm like, oh, that's nothing really.
I actually view this as no one's ganging up on anybody, because we're all different. You're in between us, I would say.
I don't know. A person,
literally and figuratively.
We all probably would have had something to argue with each other and disagree with each other on individually. Like SmileyP and Mjolnir Man be going back and forth on what the function of government should be, because I know that Mjolnir Man, he kind of expressed opinions as far as government and coronavirus goes, which is part of the reason why I wanted him on. But anyway, the idea of this subject...
Well, nobody agrees with everybody on everything.
Well, obviously, but nonetheless,
I think we forget that sometimes. That's all.
The idea of this stream was supposed to be to outnumber me, to make it kind of more entertaining and just a little bit of a change of pace. And I chose 2020 politics, just the general subject of 2020. That'd be the more interesting one. Okay. So to kind of
make sure to gang up on you.
Let's find out what the first subject is, because we might gang up on you, believe it or not. Or you guys might gang up on me.
To kind of rewind all the way back to this year, the very first hotly debated thing of this year, and somewhat of 2019, I guess, is Iran and the scare that people had of World War III.
The one where Trump launched the missile or took the troops away? Which one specifically? Something recently happened?
The one of where that...
we took out the Iranian commander.
Yeah,
okay, so a good few months ago.
Yeah, it was a good few months ago. I'm not talking like years back, because I remember like back in 2017, he asked a missile strike to be put on the Shayrat airfield. But nonetheless, means of destruction. What was your opinion about Iran there? Do you think that it was a good move on Trump's part to order the execution or just the killing in general of Soleimani for all the deaths that he had ordered out in his time of being alive as the Iranian general?
Yeah, kind of odd to, as an American president, to execute a foreign president for war crimes. Though I suppose
he wasn't a foreign president. He was a commander, according to some military personnel that I've talked to. When they said they were going around with the big bad guy list and stuff, he was in it and stuff, according to intelligence and stuff. According to intel, he had orchestrated a number of attacks that had cost American lives. That is what I know to my knowledge.
At war with the Middle East.
Well, he was an Iranian. He was in Iraq
for a while,
and he got blown up by a missile. As far as I know,
neutral territory. We weren't at war with Iraq at the time, though, right?
Well, I mean, are we still at war in Iraq? And this is...
I'm not sure. I'm not great.
I mean, the sheer fact that there's some fuzziness here, and I'm pretty sure we're not the only ones that have this fuzziness, that raised a lot of... I'll be straight up. I did a live stream with MC at the time, and I thought this... I'm like, we're at war. We are at war because we killed somebody, and all of a sudden, like, they launched a bunch of missiles at us and stuff, and as far as I know, there were no fatalities. No, they launched missiles at an American outpost there, and I guess a lot of those troops had concussions and potential other injuries as well. I'm like, I don't know, when you got two nations firing bombs at each other, that sounds like war to me.
Yeah, in all practicality, it is pretty much a war, but there is the point to be made that we haven't had an officially and legally declared war ever since World War II, of where that FDR got an official declaration of war passed through Congress. But Trump, he did not exactly get that approval by Congress in order to kill Soleimani, which that is the biggest thing that I disagree with the handling of Iran, is the idea that he just unilaterally ordered for the killing of Soleimani. But on the actual practice of itself, I agree wholeheartedly with what Trump did, and I liked the fact that as a bonus, we did not have to have a long-term war with Iran, because honestly, I did not think that World War III would have come out of this, because there was no major superpower that was backing Iran. But at the same time, I thought the worst that would have came out of it was Trump's version of Bush's Iraq. This would have been basically Trump's version of Bush's Iraq war, was the worst I thought it would be. But
that passenger plane ended up getting shot down.
Yeah, that was actually a drone.
The Iranian, because apparently they thought there were going to be U.S. missiles incoming, and it looks like, again, I didn't double check if it was confirmation, but it looks like somebody made a tragic mistake and thought that aircraft that was carrying, I think, like almost like 300 or so people, it got shot down by, I believe, anti-aircraft forces, because they thought it may have been one of our planes.
You do raise a fair point that there was a civilian transport that was shot down in the wake of
U.S. civilian transport, or
it was an Iran. It was an Iranian flight.
Who was it shot down by?
It was shot down by their own forces, the Iranian Guard. Because they were on high alert, because they had launched against us, and they were waiting for our retaliation, as far as I remember at the time. So apparently somebody had made a horrible mistake, and they identified as a passenger aircraft. I mean, this happened over Ukraine as well. Remember that you had that passenger jet that was shot down, and you could hear like the Russian commander, the translation. No, I'm talking about Ukraine. I'm talking about in Europe right now.
I'm talking about Armitage.
JC Armitage asks, no major superpower is in Iran buddy with Russia.
We're talking about Iraq.
Wait.
Oh, no, are we talking about Iran?
We are talking about Iran.
Okay, but he was in Iraq.
What?
So that's what he was in Iraq when he was killed. That's why Iraq came up. But Iran shot down an Iranian plane.
Okay, well, my earlier point was talking
Correct.
about Iran specifically.
Iran shot down an
And
Iranian plane.
Soleimani is ultimately an official of Iran, not Iraq, despite whether or not he was in Iraq at the time
I was
of his
confused,
death
Chris.
and so forth. But to answer JC Armitage's question, as far as I know, I don't think so. I don't think. Well, Iran has some relations with both North Korea and China, for that matter. Russia, I do not know for that certain, but they aren't.
I believe
they aren't very
so.
closely knit in the same way that China is the puppeteer of North Korea, or the Assad regime is the puppeteer, or the Assad regime is the puppet of Russia in the same way that Iran would be with anyone. But it's just as far as my knowledge goes, but I'm no expert on that. It was just my own layman's perspective and opinion on how bad it would have got with Iran. But nonetheless, the reason why... So, okay, back onto my point of my opinion of this whole thing. I think that Trump ultimately was in the right, that we were in the right to kill Soleimani, because he had the trail of blood on his hands of, what was it, like 500 American troops that he had killed ever since Bush's Iraq, the Iraq war started. And then the final catalyst for us to finally determine, yeah, this motherfucker should die, is the attack on the embassy that he did around January. So I don't know of what you guys' opinion was that, so I'll let you go.
I can respond. If that's
go
okay.
on. Go.
Yeah, I think the whole war is, I mean, it's basically over oil. So I think that it's a war. It is a war. So war things happen. I think unless he was posing an active threat to American lives, or even potentially American military lives to a lesser extent, perhaps.
There was an embassy that was attacked. There was an embassy that was attacked at the moment.
Okay, so that was a response to his embassy attack?
Yeah, killing Soleimani was the response to the attack on the embassy that was orchestrated by him.
Do we know why he attacked the embassy?
I don't know exactly.
Attack?
But wait, what? Sorry.
Was it just part of war, or was there a purpose?
As far as
I don't know if there was like any given good reason for why it was done, but nonetheless, I would still say that even if they're like responding to something that in their point of view they think is a legitimate response, I think
attacking an embassy for the record is unethical, obviously.
Yeah, but nonetheless, whether or not they have the justification in their own head to go ahead and attack him, I still think that we have a duty to ourselves to defend and retaliate to any attacks against our own troops and definitely civilians. A freaking drone that was shot sometime last year by Iran, that's not really worth it, Ben Shapiro. But nonetheless.
Well, wasn't there allegedly supposed to be a retaliatory strike, but it's like, all right, what are we? Oh, okay, 150, 200 civilians, and apparently the president called it off.
Well, I'm glad that there wasn't.
Are you saying that that Trump was about to call for an attack over the death of 150 Iranian citizens in that plane, and then he called it off?
No. What happened? Our drone got shot down, so it was like $150 million drone, and basically weighing the lie. The price. Okay, is $150 million drone worth potentially killing 200 or so Iranian citizens? Now, I think this is one of the things for Trump. I think he'll. No. We didn't do the strike. Now, whether the president was actually ever intending to go with a strike or not, I have no idea, because this is one of the things. I feel President Donald Trump, and even candidate Trump at the time, says a lot of things. And he says a lot of things, and whether he completely actually means them, I am unsure of this sometimes. Because basically when you have him up there at like the United Nations, and you hear the words like fire and fury and stuff like that, I'm like, I'm not sure I remember the last time a U.S. president said that, and that would terrify a lot of folks, and that did terrify a lot of folks. But at the same time, it's like, all right, didn't he also say something about sending troops into cities where there happened to be looting, there was rioting and stuff, and talking about sending in troops with bayonets and stuff on them, like some of the hyperbole I'm hearing? I'm like, you don't think that's enraging some folks, whether or not you actually mean it? When you say the Insurrection Act, and it's like, okay, you're not just straight up using it, it's like, you do realize you basically threatened to send the military into, like, U.S. civilian towns. It's like, that's some folks, I would, in my opinion, they're taking it as a threat, which ends up pissing them off more, which ends up leading to more conflict. I mean, that's just part of my takeaway.
That's just 10,000. He doesn't back them up. Who are you referring that? Who doesn't back up what? Not Shift. Just
right.
very quickly in the chat. But fucking Ben Shapiro. Does anyone still take him seriously anymore? Says asks Not Shift.
I hope to God they don't.
I still do to a certain extent. I mean, I listen to the guy mostly for his observation of what's happening in government, in the federal government, and so forth. As far as like social beliefs go, aside from abortion and guns, I don't really heed his opinion that much on that front. I mean, there was the one thing that he did for PragerU, talking about how television is causing some immorality or whatever else. I don't know. It's just him like his boomer social conservatism coming out in that way. He doesn't want to like legally enforce it, thank God, but it's still just them espousing the opinion, the mere opinion of that was a bit off base. But I digress. So, was there anything else that you guys wanted to say about Iran, or shall we move on to the next topic? And it's probably going to be like one of the longest ones.
Okay, well, I think I will sum up my opinion based on the information. I think that it would be
okay. Night Shift, very quickly. Night Shift, I agree. Trump doesn't back up what he says most of the time. You are right.
True.
Go on, Smiles.
Very true. I don't think I'm glad that they didn't retaliate, because a drone is not worth human lives. A drone is a machine, and nobody died. And a drone can kill people. So I don't blame the Iranians for trying to take one down. Did they actually take one down, or did they, in an attempt to take one down, hit the plane?
They did.
Okay, and the plane.
They shot one down, and then I think a couple of years ago they actually ninja'd a drone from us. They tapped into like a frequency and managed to land, and that totally never got shared with anybody.
Yeah, if there's a robot plane in the sky blowing people up, I don't care if it gets blown up. I don't care who it belongs to or who's it shooting at.
If the drone I did not find worthy of responding to, of even killing Soleimani himself, but it's the endangerment of human lives in that embassy attack as to why I say that Soleimani he was worthy of death at that point. Is the topic gonna be COVID-19 84 CCP viruses? Asks JC Armitage. Yes, exactly. That's the next. That's the next topic at hand. So,
may I use the restroom really quick, and I'll come back and join in?
Go ahead. Me and Memes will probably go a little bit back and forth while you're gone, though.
I will be right back.
All right. So, Memes, you still there? All right. So what's your opinion on coronavirus? Do you think that it is deadly enough to where that all the action was appropriate in the heat of the lockdown, and even of what we're doing nowadays? Be it state by state, locality by locality, or on the federal level, even as far as how government is, handling things.
I think it's a complete load of crap. The sheer fact that we're letting arguments among ourselves let this thing draw out and basically destroy our economy and basically be crippling and like tearing our nation apart. This is the big thing. It's like, I look at it and it's like, you look at the virus numbers, it's like, all right, most folks that get it, they end up surviving. It's like, okay. But at the same time, we are seeing preliminary, and this is one of those things, like, we're getting this all at once. Usually studies over medicine and reactions and stuff, this is things that happen over years, if not decades and stuff like that. But this is something that has basically been unleashed upon the world, and responding out of an abundance of caution. Well, here's the thing. Regardless of wherever the origin is, because it's like folks will say, oh, well, this and that, and okay, maybe where it came from. But then again, according to a guy that Brett Weinstein had on, according to him, and again, maybe it's inaccurate, but they had a virus match that had the same RNA from, basically, it was a minor outbreak among some miners back in, I think, 2015, somewhere else in China. And basically, if you're looking at the RNA sequence, it's like it basically is the same RNA sequence and stuff. So whether that's exactly what it is and stuff, I have no idea. All I know is you had an additional coronavirus. which is basically like your standard flu, the common cold and stuff. We have that in addition to all the other diseases and stuff like that and things that we deal with as humanity. You had something that happened to be extremely contagious, something that was novel that we didn't necessarily know what to look for at the time, because at the time it's like, well, it's possibly incubates for up to like 2 weeks to like up to a month or so and stuff. So we're hearing things about that. Now, was that actual incubation period, or is that just under the fact that it happens to be highly contagious? It seems to be based upon airborne droplets. And if it happens to be highly contagious and you have somebody that's just showing symptoms and just happens to be contagious, it could be a very brief interaction and that could spread it. So maybe based upon contact, folks were like, oh, well, this person was sick, but we didn't find out. You're looking at this, man, it's like, in my opinion, what we should have done, and again, I ain't in charge of anything, you look at this is where you need leadership and actual folks believing in their leaders and the process to work. You needed to have like the president come out there and say, listen, we literally have a plague upon our shores. We have historical precedent for this. We have modern technology. We can travel much faster, so this can spread faster. What we're going to do is we're going to shut down for a month and a half, maybe 2 months, potentially even up to a quarter. But what we're going to do is we're going to use the government credit card. We're going to be honest about this. We're going to spend whatever, the $6 trillion and everything. We will pay people to stay home. We're going to keep our basic supply and food chains going. We're going to get through this, and we're going to eradicate this frickin' virus. We're going to have all the testing. Basically, masks and gloves. Gloves maybe not so as much, but like if we actually did that at the time, and that's what bothers me, because out of all this, our government didn't trust us. Don't do anything with masks. Don't do anything with masks. Weren't there a whole bunch of conservatives after they heard that? They're like, go buy masks. They're saying not to buy masks. They're buying masks. And now they're like, I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm like, wait, what? Nani?
Right.
I don't know if I remember that, but I would say that Trump basically disappoints everybody with his handling of the coronavirus, except for all the people who worship him as God Emperor.
Dude, I covered for like the first, when the pandemic started and the president did that, I at least covered the president's initial remarks for every single one of those conferences. Dude, it drained my soul from my body because it was so much of the same thing.
I probably should have watched those a little bit more often. Memes, I apologize for that.
Oh, no. I felt it needed to be done because I'm like, well, we're living through history right now, so I'll give my view, whether or not it's popular or not. Just let the president speak.
Yeah, but nonetheless, I think that conservatives would be a little disappointed with Trump, knowing that he did not close down like travel from China or other nations that are hot spots of coronavirus. And then there's also the liberals who did not, who was disappointed with him not acting soon enough as far as protective measures go, like PPE and shutting down other sectors of the economy and so forth. Don't know how much they would have liked the idea of shutting off travel in the same way that conservatives would have, but nonetheless, my opinion is that I think the absolute most that Trump could have, should have done or whatever was shut down travel. As far as like, but even then, I'm kind of standoffish because there is still the libertarian beliefs that I withhold. What I definitely disagree with him on is his, the spending packages and then the executive orders against hoarding and price gouging. Don't know what you guys' opinion is on that. I mean, SmileyP, he is like probably the least agreeing on government action amongst this podcast in general.
Probably,
so,
yeah.
I gotta ask, Smiles, would you call yourself pro-lockdown or anti-lockdown?
Well, I would say the best thing to do would be probably to have locked down immediately, and then we wouldn't have to later on. I mean, if it's necessary, it's necessary. I'm for it. Yeah.
I completely.
I think if we can contain it with just masks right now, though, I think that's fine.
I don't think.
However, I think school shouldn't be the way it is. I think school should be more online.
I gotcha. As far as like the public sector goes, I do not care really of what the government does as far as the public sector goes. Public sector schools, public sector arranged events like the Riverfest here in Wichita, for example, they canceled that. I was disappointed, but at least they were still like within their rights or jurisdiction, rather, in my opinion, anyways, for doing that. But invading in the economy, like interfering in the private sector, is where I have the biggest problem. And like mandating that certain businesses shut down, like a hardcore shutdown in the same way that New York did, and so on and so forth. Like, I know what the numbers look like as far as the nastiness of the virus goes. But on the other hand, there's also the deaths and other poverty that arises out of these lockdowns. You got to like keep that in mind. For one thing...
Oh, no. Dark, I just wanted to interject to steelman your point a little bit there. My big thing is, if the government is going to declare that your establishment, the way you earn your livelihood, must shut down, at that point, in my opinion, the government owns that. That's the big thing right there. Just because, at least in the Constitution, it's like,
what do you mean by owns that?
By own that, basically, I would say you are liable for helping those folks out there.
And I
because whether or not it's paying employees, and this is the thing that gets me. We end up going through, and I'm sure there are plenty of reasons why we had to do like the Paycheck Protection Program, this, that, and the other things. My big thing is, if we are going to utilize the resources of the federal government, I want to basically help as much people for the most efficient way possible. Because if you're going to spend the people's money, do it wisely. Because if you got to do something like this is where like Andrew Yang looks like a freaking genius, man. He was talking about like, all this UBI, and all of a sudden folks are like, oh, you can't work. Well, how am I going to pay my bills? Oh, well, maybe if you had some, like, even in Canada, one of my friends in Canada, I was talking to her, it's like, what they did, again, they have a smaller population, but then again, they also have a much smaller economy as well. They're paying everybody like $2,000 a month or so. And it's like, at least to try to get by, and they already do have a fairly broad base of different social programs. They might not be as rich as the United States is, but it's like,
I will say that the individual poverty with individuals living within each country, it's kind of case by case subjective, because in the third world, I will keep in mind that they do not have as sophisticated of a welfare system as the Western world does, be it the U.S. or freaking Europe for that matter. But at the same time, I just want to point out to look at their lockdowns, and they ended up like increasing poverty with what they did. There was a very good Economist article that was talking about how that people were what's the term they're looking for? They weren't able to afford food, afford basic survivability things, because they don't have anything as a backup, really, except for relying on their own fellow family members who don't have a job themselves, because massive lockdown. Go on, those smiles. I know that you raised your hand.
Thank you. Yeah. I think I'm in pretty much agreement with memes on this one, because I think that I think a lockdown should have been done swiftly and enforced, but they should be that should in no way endanger anyone's livelihood in any way. If anything, they should receive, I would say, perhaps even a little bit more money than they were making before. But that's arguable, and that's fine. But at least the same. Or, I mean, potentially even down to like the 70% rule, but I think at least the same, because if you were paying rent for a certain price that you could afford with your paycheck, and then you only get 70% of it, you might not be able to afford your rent anymore. So I think you should get what you were getting paid before.
My problem is the risk of hyperinflation with all the different spending that the government is doing.
We're already seeing inflation. Look at the price of like a pound of ground beef and everything, dude. Even my little cosmic, dude. Dude. Even my little cosmic brownies and stuff. Like about a month and a half, 2 months after like this started and stuff, they went from like 50 cents to 9 cents.
Why would you think that would be? Why would you think that would be, memes?
Oh, dude, we're printing money like it's nobody's business, man. Dude,
spending
exactly. I mean, memes. You're kind of making my point. That's the whole reason why I'm against the spending packages, is because it causes the government to want to print more money, which causes the inflation, the value of the currency to decrease, causing inflation.
Gentlemen, when I first heard about that $6.2 trillion plan, my literal inner libertarian just wanted to just put my head through a wall. At that point, I'm like, you are literally going to print $6.2 trillion right now. It's like, it's not like we really got a hold of spending and was trying to pay anything down before this anyway. So we already were over at $20 trillion at that. We're going to be over 30 trillion easily this year, maybe even more than that. But I'm just looking at all the money that we're spending, and that's why I'm like, all right, well, we're going to spend that obscene amount of money, why don't we do it in the most fair way as possible? And that's why I'm like, divide by the 210 million adult Americans. I really think we could have solved a lot of these problems and everything, and people would have been okay with it. Normally, I'm not a fan of that, but again, if we are going to go through it, because we had the choice. And to be fair, I initially thought, and this was before we got more data and everything, we were going to do what the UK was originally proposing. We were going to keep calm, carry on, because at least growing up, even like when 9/11 happened and stuff, it's like I saw that, yeah, those flights, a lot of them were from Boston and stuff, and like people lost their lives of like folks that you would know and everything, and that happened, but we didn't shut things down and stuff. I mean, we covered it in like history class, because my history teacher is like, this is history right here. We watched that, but it didn't necessarily directly affect, aside from like the severe traumatic emotional moment we shared as a nation and as a world. Like, you saw that, but at the same time, like this is affecting people's daily routine, not necessarily, I mean, their psyche is just a whole different thing. People being cooped up for months and everything. I think we're all starting to go a little nutty bananas. It's just like, either you,
look at the
like
riot.
Smiley was saying, just like close it down, you do it swiftly and as strict as possible, so we can get through this and just get back to our normal lives. Or if we were going to choose to muddle through it, you do the most responsible things you can. It's like, all right, protect folks that are going to be at risk, and when folks go out, basically minimize the communicability of a highly contagious virus. I mean, folks in Asia and stuff like that, they've been wearing masks and stuff for years.
Yeah, since before I was even born, they've been doing that. Like, China specifically.
I feel it's an infringement, but is it reasonable given the situation that we're in a national emergency?
Well, I think that it's very marginal as far as like infringements on liberties go. It's not as bad as arresting a mom from Idaho just because he decides to take her kids to the playground. But nonetheless,
well, what about Zoom work?
Unethical. It's nonetheless something worthy of critique.
The folks on Zoom wearing masks?
No, I'm saying, what about? That's
funny. Folks on Zoom are wearing masks.
I'm saying, I'm sure they are. But what I was referring to specifically was I mean, if like open up online work, make online work better, so you can work from home and stuff, so that we don't need as much money and it's not just all unemployment. Do what you can. Like, keep it and get it over with as soon as possible.
Do it exactly. No, this is what I kind of like mean when I'm talking about democratic capitalism. It's like, all right, do we need to have all this expensive plant that we need to spend all this power to basically generate and stuff like that, or can we actually have a more distributed means and like going in this direction? Because this is going to dramatically shift the economy just of the entire world, in my opinion. Because we've had this technology for a while, we really just haven't had the will to, and at this point, we were basically forced to. So now it's like, well, why the heck not?
Do you guys want to discuss UBI, or do we want to save that for another conversation?
Save it for another time. And just mostly want to talk about the lockdown itself and the effects of the lockdown and what we are for exactly. I mean,
I gotta get going in just a little bit. I'm sorry. My apologies. I only got so much time. I can't swing going all night. I know.
I guess we'll.
No, but we could continue on with your next thing. Continue.
I'll go through Con, and we'll link up later on.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about a little bit more about the lockdown at some other time. But I guess to move on to the next big subject of 2020.
So have we established where we stand?
Not necessarily. I mean, I'm anti-lockdown, passionately anti-lockdown. I mean, at the very, very beginning of the coronavirus, coming into what?
Of any kind of lockdown?
Of pretty much any kind, yes. I mean, there are some tolerances that I have of varying different degrees as far as how infringing the government can get onto people's personal lives and within the economy and so forth. But nonetheless, overall, yes, I am anti-lockdown. But as I was saying, like when the
how do you feel about vaccinations? If I may ask.
I don't think that they should be mandated individual by individual.
But you don't think they're evil?
No, not necessarily. But
I was just asking. I wasn't sparking a discussion. It was just, I was going to equate the lockdown to an inoculation. If we do it really intensely for like 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month, and then we don't have to do it anymore, it would be kind of like an inoculation. It's like
Yeah, I wouldn't be for that.
Okay.
it would like
provided
really
that all
affect the
services
economy
were,
badly.
people were making the same money, and it didn't disrupt the economy in the sense of people. People were given the money that they were expended. They were allowed to order stuff online, including food. Delivery companies exploded, and as well as internet visual, group chat sessions for work and for pleasure.
Yeah, the pandemic definitely did like incentivize an innovation and technology within the Western world. But what I was about to say was at the very bare beginning of the pandemic, I was almost tempted, not gonna lie, to shelve my libertarian ethics, my libertarian beliefs just temporarily. But then the more and more that this unfolded, the more and more that people were showing themselves to be authoritarian as far as what they advocated and did in light of the lockdown, in light of the pandemic, it got me more and more passionately anti-lockdown. And I think, what's her name? Christy Baker. I can't remember the name of the Idaho mom, but have you heard the story of a mom in Idaho who got arrested just because she took her kids to the playground? And then there was a whole bunch of other people that joined up, but they weren't arrested.
That is unfortunate. I have not heard about that, though.
I thought that locality, they had a very strict thing where if you were out there, you weren't her kids playing with other people's kids that were at the park. You wanted to be violating. You were allowed to be out in like groups, but if you arrived with another group, you weren't supposed to associate with other groups and stuff. And I'm like kids are gonna play and stuff. But my thing is, it's like, all right, I'm not sure this was a time, like if you have masks, I tend to think that needs to be a great thing, especially if you're outdoors during the day. If you got a wind and stuff going. I just literally equate it to like literally like, I don't know, smoking a cigarette or something. It's like, I happen to be indoors right now because I'm a terrible person. Smoking is bad. What do I do this? I exhale smoke and it fills up. Whereas if I'm outside, if you're standing 6 feet away from somebody smoking, you're probably not going to smell the smoke.
But
I'm not a doctor.
I would take it that you are against
your responsibility to not bring others down with you.
I would take it, I would take it that you are against that mother who was arrested just for taking her kids to the playground.
I kind of remember that story. I feel there was a little bit more to the story. I just don't recall off the top of my head. And this was a lot of this comes down to we didn't really have decisive leadership because President Trump is like, we're going to do 15 days to slow the spread. And a lot of folks are like, okay, now what we're doing. See, if he had to just come on and be like, folks, we need to shut down. I realize this will suck. This will suck. We will get through this. This will be eradicated, and then it will go away. If we could do that, but we kind of just are shooting ourselves in the foot by arguing, having all these different policies. Folks have been going through this for so long that they're like, screw this. I don't even know what's true at this point in everything, and it's like, I just want to go to the beach.
There is all the predictions that get wrong. It just makes people really doubt the efforts being done against the pandemic and doubt the effects of the pandemic itself, to where people are just like, fuck it. I'm not even going to try. I'm not even going to obey the recommendations. I mean, masks are easy enough, I guess, but refraining yourself from continuing on with your regular life with a mask, that even with or without a mask, that just makes people be all like, no.
That's why if we could have pitched the face coverings and stuff, and dude, we could have made this cool. And this is the one thing that I think President Trump kind of failed on and stuff like that, where it's like, all right, where he's not saying you must wear a mask, but if he's encouraging it and he's saying this is what the experts are saying, if you want, you just come out and just virtue signal with a cool USA mask. Like my mom had got me. I lost my red, white, and blue mask, dude. I freaking love that thing. It was nice. It was light, but it kind of did its job and everything. And it's like, all right, guess what? I can virtue signal whatever the heck I want. I can get a cool skull mask or something.
Right? Yeah.
You can make it fun if
we went up too.
Well, and that's the thing. If you're going to do it, just kind of make it cool. Well, some people, there'll always be people that won't do things and stuff, but at least this is why I'm more of a fan of, if you can get society to do it rather than having to pass a law, well, then you don't have to pass a law, and then you won't have all the unintended consequences that come down the line of passing that law. See, that's kind of where a bit of my more inner libertarian comes out. I'm like, if we could figure this out without having to, because you know what happens, you pass a law, then something in society changes and something, or maybe a word kind of changes a little bit there, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, now we have all of these issues and everything, so now, my big thing is, Why do we have all these old laws causing all these problems that we need to go through all this BS? Why are these laws still on the books?
Good question.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I guess we'll move on to the next topic because Memes did say that he has to leave here pretty soon, and my day is getting kind of late, and I have stuff going on in the evening, and we've passed the 2-hour mark about 12 minutes ago. So
is this usually under 2 hours? This podcast?
I usually try to keep it around 2 hours. I know that the one live stream before that, you and Don were pretty much dominating the airwaves, arguing with each other. That went almost to 3 hours. I think longer than 3
My
hours.
podcasts tend to go long, it looks like.
But nonetheless, let's get on to the next big topic of 2020. We can talk about pedophilia allegations and that kind of shit some other time. Maybe. Okay. Hopefully next time with Mjolnir Man, I can have all three of you on that next time where we want to talk about 2020 politics. Because I know that Mjolnir Man has a big old gripe with me about the lockdown and whatnot. To put it lightly, no offense to the guy, I like him. Just this isn't me.
He disagrees with you. I like you, and I disagree with a lot of you. That's all.
But nonetheless, what do you guys think?
People not politics.
What would you guys call yourself as far as the riots? Pro or anti-riots?
Depends what they're rioting for. Are they rioting for police violence or to turn over capitalism? I'm honestly for both, I guess, so it doesn't matter. But yeah,
I'm anti-riot, pro-protest.
Yeah, the protest is fine. I mean, allow it, and even the idea of police brutality.
I'm not blanket pro riot, by the way. I just want to say that before I go into it.
Okay, even if police brutality is such a minority subject, I still think that it is legitimate for people to be protesting it by the daily or whatever. It's just
they're right.
It's just the riots that I really have an issue with, and I have a hair trigger with the people who even advocate for that might not practice in the riots but advocate for them, or be sharing all these memes on Facebook like some of my friends have been saying we are for the riots. Rioting is a profound form of protest against the society.
I've seen folks literally say burn it down. And it's
you look at that, I'm like, what the riot is for and what resulted from the riot.
No. I get what you're saying, man, but we got to condemn violence wherever it comes from and everything. No. I understand what you're saying, and I'll be straight up.
Would you condemn riots in the case of the American Revolutionary War?
That's a very good point right there.
I think they
no. Hey, do it. Hey, and I'm a masshole born and raised, so I can respect that point completely right there. My big thing is, and I'm going to put this out there again, you got to condemn violence, but it's all right. So you got what happens in Minneapolis and stuff. You had, at least what we're looking at from the time, it's all right, it looks like a state-empowered agent took one of our fellow Americans' life, and even if
holy shit,
I can't hear you.
Hey,
I think my connection.
I can hear you, Smiles. Can you hear me?
I lagged out.
Such a big brain.
I lagged out.
The wave
affected
the connection.
Oh no!
It was brain take.
Yes, well, my big thing is you look at that. It's okay, what ended up happening? It's well, we might not charge these officers. You're just looking at the public reaction, and then that local police station got burnt down with nobody in it.
If anything,
people saw that, and a lot of folks, it's again, they're well, that might not surprise them. Does it really surprise me? No, it doesn't really surprise me. You still got to condemn that, because even though nobody died in that instance, what happens if somebody was in there? We got to call it all out and everything, even if we understand why it happened.
I will say that the rioting and burning down against the police precincts, the police departments, is at least more understandable. I do not know if I would outright condone it and say, yeah, go ahead, definitely do it. It's the private sector, rioting against the private sector, that I have a real big deal with. Like the riots, the main crux, the thing that was the catalyst of them was the death of George Floyd. And all these private businesses had jack diddly squat to do with George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, or even Jacob Blake nowadays, which I would say that Jacob Blake is not really worth rioting at all. And I would almost even say that the police were justified in that case. George Floyd, definitely not justified, nor were they with Breonna Taylor. But yeah, three different stories there, entirely different stories, especially comparing Blake between those other two. But anyway, I mean, even if you want to say that the police were all wrong with all three cases and not just two out of the three, The private sector businesses had nothing to do with it, so I find the riots to be completely unjustified.
Well, I have something to say really quick. I think I would defer to Thomas Jefferson in this point with his quote, "The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants." Occasionally, things need to be appealed, and occasionally, very rarely, we try to avoid this, but potentially there is justified violence. And I believe private property violence way before blood violence. I'm not a big advocate for drawing blood unless absolutely necessary as a final resort. But I agree with Thomas Jefferson on this.
There is obviously a difference between killing somebody and destroying their business, but I still think that they are almost equally unjustified. And with how much damage to property was done, and even people's faces smashed in light of the riots, it makes it more damaging than even like a year's worth of police brutality cases.
As far as personal property goes for me, I'm sorry,
but
you're not done?
Yeah, well, I want to address this very quickly. As far as like the Boston Tea Parties go, that was like a damaging of public property.
Private.
Like
public? I think it was private. It was tea.
The tea was owned by the British government. At least the tea was, if not the entire East India Trading Company. What?
Privately owned by the British, not by the Americans.
Well, okay, this is getting like into semantics.
No taxation without representation.
Agreed.
Taxation without representation was one of the issues right there. But they were like taking their ire out. I mean, at least with the modern day riots, at least with the police departments, they are actually taking their anger towards the people who are actually responsible for the actions that they are rioting over. With private businesses, they are not directing their anger towards people responsible. With the Boston Tea Party, at least with the institutions that are owned and ran by the government, by the people that they are angry at. But the British government was the people that were the people responsible. The British government was the entity that was responsible for all the oppression that the American colonists that they had, that all the problems that they had, and they were like directing their ire towards an organization that was owned via, you want to call it
by the monarchy,
private or public. Either way, they were still like
the British government, which was the monarchy.
India Company's tea. East India Trading Company. So I don't find
that wasn't by the monarchy or government. Then that was by the company, which was essentially its own government and nation.
It was owned.
Perhaps not first then.
It was owned by the British government at the time. Is what I observed.
Okay.
So my point is Boston Tea Parties and the modern day Floyd riots, not the same. So I just hate all these false equivalences that the pro rioters seem to be putting forth. It's false equivalent.
Okay. Well, here's where I stand. I'll just say it real quickly, if I may. I think that in the destruction, in the contention against police violence, I think that after peaceful protests and not being heard and action not being taken to defund and refund the police in different areas, use it for mental health services, for instance, to prevent crime. I think that if that's not happening and that's what we want, then eventually you could, throw some, like spray paint the police or something, or throw a bottle at it or something, or destroy it completely if potentially that's what's necessary in order to be heard and to be listened to and taken seriously.
Obviously, and if say the local government of Wichita was to send the police out to confiscate the gun of every single Wichitan citizen, I would at that point advocate for burning down the police department. Sorry to any one of my friends that might be part of the police department, but at that point you do naturally and by default become the enemy.
Yeah, and precisely that's why we have gun rights, to protect ourselves from the tyrants, which in this case is the police, the institution of the police.
The first plus second make us free.
So if they're taking away your guns, that's literally why we have in the Constitution that we have guns, to protect you from the government doing that, so that you can overthrow them if they become too powerful or tyrannical, which I believe we're in the state of right now, and which is why I'm pro-riot in certain institutions, because we need riots in order to to catalyze the change we need.
I guess I have to define what I mean by pro-riot. Are you like pro-riot? Are people pro-riot in the way that they are being done right now? And right as it is right now,
give me a riot.
The riots are being done both at public and private property, mostly at private property, actually.
I also have
most
specific
of the damage
rules on
is
private property too. Not all private property is game, in my opinion. I think that I think corporate private property is much more up for destruction than private local business. If it's a local business, I think you should not touch it. But if it is, unless of course they are explicitly anti what you are for and they are antagonizing protests, perhaps they could use a bottle through their front window. I don't know. I don't know them. I'm not advocating any particular action or event. I'm just saying that that's how I feel.
I could go on.
Unless that happens, I think we can attack things like gas stations, things like malls, fast food restaurants, any chain of any kind. I think those are totally up for grabs, especially oil companies too, because oil companies are very wealthy and very well off. And I think that, however dangerous it is, I don't think you should explode the gas stations. But
what's the justification of destroying those big corporations?
Say again. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
What's the justification of destroying those big corporations that you're referring to?
Well, if you're anti-capitalism and their capitalism is causing great exploitation, particularly in the global South and in the Middle East.
Well, there's the fundamental disagreement right there.
Well, the whole reason we're in the Middle East is the whole reason we're at war in the Middle East is for oil. So, like,
right.
I mean, we're causing war over there. Why can I not cause a little destruction over here to protest that? Because I want it to fucking stop.
I believe it is illegitimate, but that doesn't mean that I think that I should like start burning down Coke Industries or something.
I'll boil down my Coke shop if there's a Coke shop. You know, first of all, Coca-Cola doesn't have any specific shops, and second of all, it sounds like cocaine shop. Which would be fair, though. I'm for drug legalization.
The energy company of Coke Industries, though, now owned by
Coke, the Koch brothers, even a totally different Coke. This is why.
Well, duh, dude. You just mentioned gas. I did.
I was very silly right there.
Oh
but
man,
I was thinking Coke like Coca-Cola because I would also.
I thought the left wing's boogeyman would have been the first thing that popped in your head once I mentioned that. But anyway,
whoops.
But as I was saying, I would direct my anger more towards the federal government than towards Coke Industries.
I agree. I think both equally.
Okay.
I agree with destroying both institutions.
I would not say both equally. Why do you say that they're both equally responsible for the war?
If anything, the oil is more than the government. But
so how about rather than destroying these things? Because at that point, when you make that statement, No. I'm sure it is more nuanced, but I'm talking about this when I hear these things more in general. So let's actually take a step back. We'll do that because I don't want to just come off and just attack an individual. Because again, don't hate the player, hate the game. But when I start hearing destroy, that means okay, whatever system is currently in place is now the enemy, and you're saying we're going to destroy you. So at that point, they're like, well, by default, we need to defend ourselves. So you become our enemy. So we're going to do everything to fight against you. Is that? At sometimes maybe we need to do that. Maybe that is the case. I don't always know. But if we have the ability to say, listen, we got a whole bunch of folks over here. We'd like you to listen to us because we think we can do things better. And you know what? I think we can do a lot better things for society as a whole. And there'll still be a lot of folks that can make a bunch of money. I don't think there's anything wrong with making a bunch of money. And especially if society's doing well. Because if you have so much wealth inequality, at some point it's like, it just don't work, man.
But anyway, to kind of, I did not hear an answer to my question, though.
Okay.
Smiles, what does make both Coke Industries and the federal government equally responsible for the war on terror that is, by proxy, also a war to achieve oil?
Hold on, I'm sorry. I have to write down what he was saying so I can respond to it later. Anyway, so your question was why am I mad at both the oil and Coca and the government the Koch brothers and the government equally? Is that your question?
No, my question is why do you say that they are both equally responsible? How are they both equally responsible?
I don't know if it's 50-50. I'll say that. I'm pretty sure they're both equally deserving of my ire, of our defense against them. But I would say in specifically the Iraq war or the war on terror. I mean, the war on terror was the cover to do the war for oil. Same thing with the nuclear weapons. I mean, that's what started it. But I'm not going to say anything about 9/11. I don't know who did it. I don't know who didn't do it. I'm not going to talk about it. It happened and it's real. And we went to the Middle East in response to it. But we also went to the Middle East to get oil. And so the oil companies who are profiting from that, in addition to the government also profiting from that off of like taxes and government contracts and things like that, I think are both equally responsible because they work together. They're allies. The Koch brothers definitely vote for the war. Anytime that comes on, they vote for more and more destructive, powerful war to extract the remaining oil from the earth through things even on our own soil, like fracking, which causes people's fucking sink water to catch fire. Have you seen that? That's
Sink
crazy.
water to catch fire.
Yeah, from fracking. You can look it up on YouTube.
That must be a very minority.
It probably is,
right
but it's
there.
still.
I remember that was a thing.
Wait,
apparently,
memes. You kind of interrupted Smiles, and plus your microphone is very fucking loud in comparison to both of ours. But go on, continue, Smiles.
I'm sorry. Am I too quiet? Should I move the mic closer?
Maybe you should to kind of compensate for memes. But
I can also actually turn up the volume. Hold on. Is this better though? Now that it's closer to my face?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. What was the question again?
Well,
About the
continue what you were saying earlier before memes kind of interrupted you.
I honestly, unfortunately, don't quite remember. But I was pretty much done, and I think he was just agreeing with me, so it wasn't too much of an interruption. But my reasoning is because they both benefit from the war in their own ways, and so they perpetuate the war as a result. And I think that therefore they are both responsible for it and are equally at fault and should be held responsible.
I don't think
similarly in similar portion.
I don't think that beneficiary should be like a metric on saying of who we punish for what is done. I mean, oh god, what's a very good example?
They're almost the perpetuators, though. I don't care about beneficiaries if they're not perpetuating it. They both perpetuate it. The Koch brothers by buying policy and lobbyists in order to increase oil profits and potentially creating more war as a result.
That's kind of where I was expecting you to get at. I mean, all these people that go donating money to all these politicians who are like for this war and they want this war to happen. Let me ask you this then: should we start smashing the face of everyone who votes for George Bush because they're for the war on terror and such?
Well, nobody votes for George Bush anymore, but I think what you're saying is people who vote Republican, right?
Well, vote for anybody that is for continuing war. Let me put it. Jared,
no, I don't vote.
I voted for John Kerry.
You put the face for perpetuating the war on terror or trying to continue it, memes. How dare you?
I thought we would have better relations with the world at the time. I mean, it was my first time.
Okay.
I think
I actually got to run. I've been lagging in and out here. That's why I've been kind of very still and stuff. So I actually got to run, dude. Hey, very nice to meet you, Smiley. We'll totally have to do this again, and we'll do a little collab. Love to have you on, man.
Yeah. Do you have Twitter or anything to plug?
I do. I'm at Meme Destruction on Twitter or on the YouTubes at the Memes of Destruction.
I will follow you right now.
After this live stream, I will put everybody's social media down in the description box below for who did participate. But yeah, thank you a lot for participating, memes. Thank you for putting in your insight.
Meme Destruction on Twitter? I'm sorry.
At Meme Destruction.
Thank you. All right, I will see you. All right,
we'll see you soon. Peace out and long live the Oval.
All right, so.
All right. And long live the Oval Office. Is that what he just said?
I did not hear that exactly, but my question was, okay, so you kind of got to where that I was expecting you to go. All these big companies who essentially want the wars to continue on, interventionism and all that sorts of thing. I mean, by that extended logic, should we start smashing the face in of everybody who votes for an interventionist politician and ultimately gets them elected within their appropriate offices of government?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I think individual humans, like people, like voters who vote once, who vote for the politicians, I just view that as an education issue in their own personal opinion. I mean, they're not benefiting from the war, but they're perpetuating it because they think it somehow benefits them because their representatives tell them that that's the case, and that's why they want you to vote for them so that they can continue to do that. Yeah. But I view if you use lobbyists to push policy, then you are nothing.
Perpetuation one of the metrics that you're using as to justify the burning down of these different industries, but be it Koch brothers be it Koch Industries or the federal government that is ordering out.
I do have one thing to say. When I say destroy, I don't always mean violently. You could also replace that word with dissolve. I think that these companies can be dissolved non-violently, and that would be a way of destroying them, technically, and I would agree with that over violence. If violence is necessary, they will have to be attacked. But if they can be dissolved legally and peacefully, I'm all for it as well. All I care about is the best for humanity. Like we all really care about.
I said, like, pull out the subsidies that all these oil companies get from the government. I don't know. Campaign
sorry,
finance.
My connection might be slow. I can't quite. Could you repeat that? It kind of lagged on my end.
I say let's put in forth. Let's repeal the subsidies and bailouts and so forth of big companies, be it in or not in war. And also put in campaign finance law. I mean, I might be sounding a little bit like a TYT sock dem or something when I say this, but I am somewhat in agreement of them that I am for putting a limit on how much that politicians donate, or excuse me,
good idea. Yeah.
Rich people donate to politicians. So let me put it that way. But ultimately, I am not for burning down Coke Industries, ExxonMobil, or anyone else like that. If anything, if you... And
again, I'm not explicitly advocating for burning anything down. I'm advocating for perhaps rearranging resources and perhaps changing our reliance on energy to nuclear over oil.
Well, we're talking about the justification of different types of riots. Is why that I asked in the broad general sense, are you pro or anti-riot? And then we kind of go off on this tangent of talking about a war for oil, so on and so forth.
Okay, so let's get back to the topic.
Yeah. But I would say that ultimately, if you're for, if you feel so passionately that the war should be ended that badly because, we aren't killing any terrorists at all, we're just killing...
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble understanding you. I don't know if it's affecting, if it might be on my end, I'm not sure. Could you say that again? I'm sorry. It's like lagging. I don't know if it's doing that on YouTube or not, though. I know that it's happening for me. Am I lagging to you?
Oh, damn. It is my end. It is completely my end. I'm surprised that this live stream did not end up ending completely. But nonetheless, oh, God, it is your connection. Oof, major roboting there, DarkCon. Okay, I hear you. I hear you, JC. I mean, I'm able to hear and see you smoothly. It's just
it seems to be better now. I can hear you better now.
Okay.
I think it was just a wave.
What was I going to say? I completely forgot what I was about to say.
I think you were talking about the war specifically, and I don't know, or burning down industries. Okay. I'm not explicitly for burning down anything. I'm explicitly for change, and if that can be done peacefully without burning anything down, that would be the ideal. Right. That would be perfect.
Now I know
sometimes it is necessary.
Now I know better of what I was trying to talk about there. I would say that if you feel so strongly about the war on terror, you really think that we are hardly killing any terrorists at all, and really it's almost exclusively, if not at least mostly, innocent people that are being directly killed because of the military.
I don't know if I'd say that. I'm not sure about that.
You would be more justified.
I know that we are attacking ISIS.
Well, I'm just speaking more in the broad general sense of my point here. Then you would be more justified in burning down federal buildings and anything. Not that I'm advocating for that at all, mind you, everybody. I'm just talking about in the general principle of things right there.
You seeing things from my perspective, you would think I would be more mad at the government than the oil companies, but I am pretty much equally mad at both of them. I mean, if you want to get into the minutia of it, we could.
All right, Vladimir Lenin.
If you want to, Vladimir wasn't too bad. I'm more of a Trotskyist, to be honest, but I disavow Stalin. I'm not interested in him. I could learn more about him that changes later. I'm not interested in Stalin. Lenin was a bit too violent, actually, believe it or not, coming from me. I think he really just wanted to overthrow everybody and kill people and just permanent revolution. And I from what I have read and learned and seen, I agree with Trotsky's opinions, who was supposed to be the one following Lenin, but Stalin sort of produced a sort of a mini coup and kind of kicked him out, from my understanding. Well, it wasn't an actual coup, but it was he arranged things to put himself in power instead of Trotsky and kicked him out.
But Lenin and Stalin, I dislike both of them, and Mao is pretty much a combination of both of them. And
I'm not a big fan of Mao either. Yeah, I think Mao and Stalin are on similar ground.
Mao and the CCP can go fuck themselves. You hear me, China?
Be careful, you won't be profitable in China if you say that.
Yeah, I don't give a shit. There are plenty of other news commentating outlets that are able to at least make their ends meet by criticizing China nonetheless. Yeah. But anyway, I guess final question before we go off air, because I really feel like I use the bathroom here pretty soon.
Me too, actually, yeah.
What do you think of ACAB? Do you think all cops are bad?
I think the institution of police is bad. I don't think and it's trying to say that, even though it is explicitly saying all cops, as in the individuals, are bad people, or the other word, I don't know, bastards, because we're allowed to swear. I agree with the sentiment. I don't agree with the wording. I think it should be the police are bastards, or the police is a bastard, and it's something like that, because it is the institution that is the problem, not the individual people. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. A lot of people go into police force because they are violent and want to enact their violence on people and prove power over themselves, which is not a good thing. But I believe that is more of that's because the police as an institution is inherently geared that way. And so I believe that we should defund it. We shouldn't fund it as much. It should not be militarized. They should not be getting old military vehicles and equipment. And I also think that the money that is going to them, that is overpaying them, not completely eliminating the police as an institution overnight, but bringing their funding down, like I said, taking away some of their more powerful, unnecessarily powerful weapons, I should say, specifically, and technologies and vehicles. And that money should go into places like mental health services, perhaps socializing healthcare more, as well as education in general, not just healthcare services, but schools, inner city schools need to be beefed up the fuck up. Like they are so underfunded and so bad, and it's why we have so much poverty in low income areas, because they don't even have good opportunities to escape. So I'm that's my opinion. I think the police should be cut down and reallocated.
In the very beginning of your whole spiel right there, you put it in a way that I could more agree with, as far as people being generally anti-police. Like, you don't like the police as an institution, but you aren't willing to say that all cops as individuals are bad people. It's more understandable to me, because that sounds
like you agree a little bit too, to be honest. Perhaps.
Well, not entirely. I think that any wasteful spending in the police force should be redirected into training, rather than completely diverted into welfare. Or
that's a possibility too, actually. It should go to that.
That's your idea. Yeah, that's my idea. But my idea is more police training rather than.
That's the only thing to do with it.
And if things really do get so extreme within a given locality, then the state can call in the National Guard if they must so. Not have
if they need military, they have
not have the police force immediately militarized for that kind of a circumstance.
Totally, yeah.
Because the police, as far as I know, are generally more poorly trained in America.
The military, that's their job.
Military.
The National Guard. But they're the military police of the United States. They're when the police needs to be militarized. The police does not need to be militarized. They don't need tanks. They don't need rovers. They don't need whatever they're called. The armored vehicles, ACBs. I don't know what they're called, but the armored transports. They don't need all those. They don't need the battering rams. They need little ones perhaps, but they don't need mechanical ones that I've seen. And if they need the military, call in the military. Don't break the police, the military. They're a separate institution. And I do agree. I think that some of the funds that they divert away should be into training. I think training should be much increased. I would say that we should also be beefing up the budget of these other institutions, like specifically mental health services, because I don't think the police should be called on suicide watches or something like that. I think that the ambulance should be called, or some like a mobile therapist or something like that. If somebody's trying to kill themselves, you don't want the fucking police at your door to throw you into a hospital. You want trained professionals who know how to deal with mental health issues coming to your door. You want to call the suicide hotline and have maybe one of them show up, not the police. The police and the police don't know what to do with it. That's not their job.
Just curious, but does
APCs? Thank you, JC Armitage.
But does I don't even know if they're like technically called APCs, at least what the police use anyways, because APCs have more treads. The things that they're using have big tires, but like
I am
regular
for
wheel tires. As I was about to say in your regards, SmileyP is ultimately for allowing people to bear arms, and even for encouraging people to bear
Liberals
arms.
are the only ones who don't want to arm people. People on the right, people on the left, the extreme left, want guns. They both want guns. The people in the middle are the only people who don't.
Yeah,
liberals.
Well,
which I am not a liberal. I'm a leftist. Liberal and leftist are different. Liberals are pretty much centrists. I would view our friend memes as somewhat liberal.
I would say that there are such a thing as left liberals. They're more on the center left or moderate left, but not the far left. That would be a
liberal, not a leftist. Yeah, I'm a leftist, not a liberal, not a middle leftist. I'm a far leftist. I'm an anarchist. I'm an anarcho-communist. So I'm pretty much as far left as you can get, and the libertarian side. Yeah, and people like me are pro-gun.
Arguing about semantics aside, though, and political definitions.
That's a big one of ours.
Pro what?
I said pro Molotov cocktail, but that was a joke. And
yeah. Right.
We like those too.
Oh, actually, there is one last question out of a curiosity. Well, actually, no, I'm not going to go there because that'll probably get us into a bigger tangent. But save that question for another time, possibly the next time that we go talking about 2020 politics, possibly with both Mjolnir Man and SmileyP and memes joining along as well. But for right now, I will
happily come on whenever I'm available if you invite me. Also, if the viewers want it, if you want it, I'm available anytime. And if you might, I'm going to be developing my own podcast. If anybody wants to subscribe to me, and I would gladly have you on sometimes if you'd like.
Yeah. All right. I'll keep that in mind. But just to end us off this call, what do you have to say, Smiles, in ending of this?
No. Okay. I have a YouTube channel called SmileyP. I believe it's spelled the way my little computer thing is saying it. Perhaps the capitalization is different, but that's how I like to capitalize it. I also have a Twitter at SmileyP. Oh, wait, you already have all that. So all of my stuff will be in the description. If you're interested in hearing more from me, please subscribe. Check me out. I would really appreciate that. I also have Instagram. I can send you that too.
But, I'll put it down below. I'll put it down below when I end this call.
Also have TikTok.
But yes.
Okay.
Oh, geez. That
I know, right? Yeah.
But anyway, just to end it off, people, thank you all for joining along, and please leave a like, and thank you for viewing this. It ups the freaking algorithm, and leave a like as well. That will help in the long term as well. And I'll see you all later. Anyway,
I want to say one thing. Nothing belongs to anyone. Everything belongs to everybody. Nothing belongs to anyone. Everything belongs to everyone. Bye.
All right. Capitalism for the win. Justice for Brianna. But fuck the riots.